And this will get you to the point where you have a mobile responsive web application. Hello, you're going to learn a ton of stuff when it comes to artificial intelligence and coding. And if you have no coding experience, don't worry. That's the whole purpose of this entire course. Through this video you're about to watch, you're going to learn how to deploy an actual live website link. You're going to learn how to do external links, such as if I click this, it'll go to a playlist, such as this. In addition, you're going to learn how to do functionality on the actual website, such as pop-ups like this, like a YouTube link that automatically plays. Hello. Scrolling down here, you're going to learn really cool ways to affect the UI to make it a better user experience. In addition, you're going to learn how to actually securely send data outside of your website. What I mean by this is, for example, a newsletter. The user can provide their email there, hit subscribe, and that can go to MailChimp, SendGrid, anything. And yeah, we also make it so that the website you create is mobile responsive. It'll work on any screen. Therefore, grab a cup of coffee, sit down, get ready. This is going to be a very long video here, but I break it down in 10 easy lessons and in 10 easy steps with a ton of different resources that are completely free in this video. So I'll see you there. You don't need to be paying Squarespace, Webflow, WordPress, any of these websites to run an actual website. This is episode 1 of a playlist that we're going to be doing together, where I'm going to show you from start to finish how to build out an entire website that requires 0 cost per month. To be clear, the only cost that will be associated with this website will be the actual domain purchase. So if you buy a domain for $12, you're only going to be paying $1 a month. The reason I'm creating this video is I'm personally paying $18 a month just to host this website. Therefore, let's stop paying $18 a month, because $18 a month turns into $216 a year, and that turns into $1,018 for 5 years. So you're telling me just 3 days worth of work, I can not pay this anymore? Sounds good. Let's jump in. Welcome back, y'all. This video is going to kick off a pretty cool playlist that I'm about to release. Just for a timeline of what we're going to discuss in this video, we're going to discuss why I'm doing this, the what about it, like what are we doing, and the how. Now, 2 major things I want to get out of the way right away. What you're going to learn in this playlist is going to give you the ability to go past just a landing page. You're going to learn basically functionally how to create out an entire website with a content page, a about me page, everything like that, and not pay a single dime. Furthermore, in this playlist, we're going to have to create events, such as a user puts their email for our newsletter. I'm going to show you how to do this, where if the user puts their email in, we actually sign them up for the newsletter. Like, it all works perfectly. Second thing I want to say is I don't want you to get worried. A lot of you are like, Corbin, I know what you're about to say right now. I know how you achieve this. Doesn't this require code? Yes, but don't click off, because I'm going to show you how to code with a new strategy that's only been really available for the past 8 months to a year. We're going to be using ChatGPT to build out this entire website together. Now, yes, when using ChatGPT to code, you need to have some understanding of the code itself, but don't worry, that's why I'm here, and that's why you're gonna have this entire playlist to watch through this video. So this isn't like 2018 where I'm giving you the same proposition and you're gonna have to sit and watch me code for hours. No. There's a new way to code, y'all. And this new way that you're about to see to code was only possible in the last year. So don't worry, this isn't going to be your traditional let's code out a website video that you saw 3 years ago, or maybe you never saw at all. This is going to be a video that you're going to realize real quick, wait, I have no coding experience, and I watched this playlist, and I could probably code out my own website. And I can confidently say by the end of this, yes. And you know why? Because even if you get stuck, I'm going to show you how I communicate with GPT, how I fine-tune GPT, how I add custom instructions to GPT, how I do things in order to get unstuck. So yes, by the end of this playlist, I can confidently say you're going to remove a business expense within your business, which leads us to the first thing I want to talk about, which is the why. Why are we doing this, Corbin? It's only $18 a month. You can't pay $18 a month, Corbin. Yes, but let me explain why I'm doing it. We're going to go ahead and drag this why over here. The first major reason of why I'm doing this is because this is just going to be fun. Trust me, this is not going to be your normal, let's learn how to code playlist. This is going to give you all perspective. Like, this is huge. It can make coding fun. It's a lot of fun too, because now you're going to be like, yeah, I don't have to pay that $18 anymore. No more $18. Number 2 is I'm killing like 4 birds with 1 stone right here. So we're just going to put 1 stone. And you're like, Corbin, what do you mean you're killing 4 birds with 1 stone? You know the saying, like killing 2 birds with 1 stone? No, we're killing 4 birds. I think the first major bird that I'm killing, I've been doing a ton of content when it comes to creating an AI software. This playlist has like over 43 videos. It's concept of software. And one request I see a lot within this playlist, how to really set up a project and how to build out a front end and a back end. What's great about this playlist is we're going to learn together how to create that. Now, not all the way to the extent of creating an AI software. And to be honest with y'all, after this playlist, I'll probably do a playlist for that as well. But to the extent of setting up your tools, building out a front end, understanding best practices. So the first major reason is y'all. When y'all are watching my concept of software videos, or if you just met me, hello, I'm Corbin, or you're watching this one, y'all are going to learn a ton of information that is extremely evergreen. Like this playlist is going to have relevancy 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now. So that's cool. Number 2, the second bird, we're just saving money. You're going to save money after this. I'm going to save money after this. What's that $18 a month going to go towards now, Corbin? I don't know. Maybe I'll finally buy a Hulu subscription. Maybe I'll order something on Grubhub, which will probably still only pay for 60% of it. But the idea is this is free money. Why not do it? If the threshold here is you basically put in 2 to 3 days worth of work and then you never have to pay that again. And now I got more funny money. Who doesn't like funny money? And the third bird we're killing here is I'm turning a deficit of $18 lost every month into an extremely positive source of income. Basically, these videos are going to be here for years from now, and I'll probably make more money than 1,018, but that's the bottom line of how much I'm saving. The idea is the videos are evergreen, right? And the last bird here, which may be obvious, but I was already going to do this. I was already going to transition my Webflow site into a site that I coded out personally, but now I'm just wait, why not just make content around it? If I'm already going to do it, there's another bird. That covers the why this playlist is incurring. I think one other one probably is I'm kind of testing out content where I'm coding in it and seeing how it performs with my channel. I usually stray away from this just because I feel if I put too much coding content, it could scare people away when it comes to exposure. Who knows? Maybe this will perform well. Let's see the second thing. Now let's go over the what. What are we going to do? What are you going to learn by the end of this playlist? By the end of this playlist, we're going to be able to build a functional, usable landing page with a custom domain. And in this specific landing page, I'm going to make sure I include the functionality of the user puts in an email, and then that automatically subscribes them to our newsletter, whether you're using MailChimp or whatever newsletter you use. And on top of that, we're going to add other really cool stuff that we see on this website, such as hovering over, getting an image overlay. Furthermore, coming down here, we can click this and, contact an email directly. Nice little embed from Twitter. That's super easy to do. And honestly, probably a little bit more stuff. So what free value are you getting? You're going to get the ability to create an effective landing page. Land. Now, what's cool about this, and what I think I plan on doing once I create my own landing page here, I'm going to do little spin-offs here. I'm going to start connecting more to back-end logic. I'm going to start making a contact page. I know one video is going to be dedicated to a contact page because a lot of businesses, what they do and how they operate now is you're not necessarily doing e-commerce on the actual website itself. Now, if you are, part of me is shoot, should I just code out my own e-commerce and get off Shopify? But there's reasons why you'd stay on Shopify, etc. But the point is that on top of just a landing page, I'm going to show you how to build out a full-fledged website with multiple pages and directories and showing you how to use Google Search Console and everything that is basically relevant with a good website. That's not meant to scare you. Don't worry. What I'm about to show you in this playlist, you can do yourself. You just gotta have ChatGPT. That's a big thing here. Overall, by the end of this, I can confidently say you'll be able to be really good at developing front ends. And then if your reason of developing a front end was purely just for the website and the landing page, what you'll see in this playlist, you're good to go. You're off to the races. Start running. But if your use case is I'm watching this Corbin to get more background knowledge of how to build an AI software, you're at a good start here. Because realistically, what I'll probably do is when the AI software playlist does drop, because honestly, at this point, this stuff's fun for me. I like doing it. It will drop. That's going to be a lot more back-end heavy comparative to this series, which is going to be a lot more front-end heavy. For example, I'm going to try to limit the back-end use as much as possible and do most of the processes on the front end. I'm also going to show you how to use Zapier as a supplementary backend, so you don't have to get too advanced. Really depends on your use case. So that covers everything you need to know in the what. This is what you're gonna end. This is the end value point that you're gonna receive by the end of this place. I don't know how many episodes or lessons this is gonna be, but it should be enough where you feel comfortable enough to go back to lesson 2, lesson 4, lesson 1. That's why in these thumbnails, I was thinking to myself, I'm how do I make it so it looks like it's the same topic on the playlist? And I was oh, you know what I'll do? 1, 2, 3. So if you see my fingers up like this, that means there's some type of playlist and a lesson going on. Now let's get to how we're going to do this. Everything sounds good, Corbin, but how the heck are we going to do this? What do you mean? To do this is actually going to be pretty simple. We just need 2 things. Now, if we want to implement a backend, we'll need 3 things. But for now, we need 2 things. We are going to download VS Code, and we're going to use Firebase. That is horrible spelling. It doesn't even look legible. That's just Firebase. VS Code is where we're going to code. Firebase is where we're going to push to our hosting. And then one very last huge caveat here, huge. You can use whatever AI model you want to use, but this entire playlist is going to be dedicated towards this model, which is going to be GPT. I'm going to show you how to set up custom instructions here. I'm going to show you how to do everything and talk to GPT in a way where you get effective code that you can use right away. I said this before, and I'll say it again. What you're about to see in this playlist was only capable in the context of coding in the last year. This isn't 2019 anymore. This isn't going to be a traditional coding video tutorials. Like, you're going to be like, whoa, wait, you can do that? Yes, you can do that. Just so we're clear, this is the VS Code you're going to download completely free. This is Firebase, Google, and then this is ChatGPT, which I'm sure a lot of you probably already know. Now, one thing I got to point out before I get absolutely spammed in the comments is that this can be completely free, but it's dependent on variable cost. The only thing that's non-negotiable would be your domain, where if you wanted to use a custom domain, that's going to cost you basically however much your domain costs. So if it's $12 a year, $1 a month. Now, in theory, using Firebase, you don't even need a custom domain, but you'll see. Like, if you want to use, if you don't want to use a custom domain, that's fine, but you'll see. They give you a free domain you can use within Firebase. It's like firebase.webapp. Now, the only context that you'll actually have to pay is if you go over the usage that's afforded for hosting. Scrolling down here on the Firebase plan, which is going to be the free plan, it's called Spark. Notice for hosting, we get afforded for free 10 gigabytes of storage, 360 megabytes a day. You get the ability to use a custom domain on our website for free. That's cool. And multiple sites per project, all for free. Now, your first question might be, Corbin, what does that mean, 360 megabytes a day? Like, how do I go over that? Like, quantify this to visitors to website. I got you. And the only reason I know this is because I did the math myself, because I wanted to really make sure what I was doing was correct. Coming over to ChatGPT, I went ahead and had it do the math for us. In this playlist, we're going to be creating a landing page together. So one of the biggest metrics that we have to understand when it comes to building out a landing page and using Firebase is the actual size of the megabytes of that landing page. Assuming we're creating a optimized landing page that is effective and is very, very much like to the point, we're going to be only looking at around a 1 megabyte size. Knowing this is going to equate to around 5,000 people could visit our website, and we're still not paying a dime. Now let's push it. What if 20,000 people visit our website a month? If 20,000 people visited our website within that month, based off our calculations, that's going to cost you a grand total of $1.50. I think that beats the 18 USD. And on top of that, if you're getting 20,000 people to your website a month, you're probably making some money. That does it though. We're going to officially kick off a playlist here to show you how to build a website, and you never have to pay for a website again. So I'll see you in the next video. This is lesson 2 of never paying for a website again. Now, what is super cool about this series is that I'm going to provide you with a ton of resources. So now that we're jumping into lesson 2, this is what we're going to go over in today's video. Taking a step back, if you have zero to little coding experience, don't worry. Trust me, I got a ton of resources. And on top of that, this isn't 2016, y'all. You're not going to see me sit here and code for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. There's a new way to code, and you're going to learn how to do that. Therefore, in this video, we're going to do these things. Now, if any of that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry, as I'm going to explain it to you. And on top of that, you're going to get a couple things in the description down below. The first thing I'm going to put in the description is this Google Doc, which is actually going to walk you step by step of everything that I do in today's video. On top of that, you can just copy stuff over, which is really, really cool. The second thing I'm going to leave in the description down below is a ChatGPT link that is specialized for this specific context. What do you mean by that, Corbin? Let me show you. The whole purpose of this chat is for lesson 2. So everything you're going to learn today, if you run into an error, you can, of course, comment it down below. See if anyone else can help you out. But alternatively, you can talk to ChatGPT now. I've specialized it to really help you in this specific use case. Because we all know what's very frustrating is you follow a tutorial online. It's 30 minutes in, 40 minutes in. You get an error and you're like, how the heck do I get past this error? Well, guess what? I gave you the solution here. Both are going to be put in the description down below. Both are going to be free. So make sure to leave a like right off the bat, because you already know you're going to get a ton of value. And this is only lesson 2. Let's jump in. Welcome back to lesson 2 of never having to pay for a website again. And I'll be honest with y'all, based off the reaction I'm getting from lesson 1, 2 things have become very clear to me. The first thing that's become very clear to me is that people like this kind of content. And people want to watch this kind of content. I was actually kind of hesitant doing this kind of content because of the fact that it is going to be a little code heavy. But I think the way I teach, and I think the way I'm going to show you to get around the code stuff is going to make it so easy that you're going to feel like, how am I even coding right now? But you are coding. And then the second thing I realized is that, if this goes the direction I think it's going to go, I can see that there's a lot of people that want to see very high value content like this, where basically I'm eliminating an entire expense from your business, or alternatively creating an opportunity to create a website for free. Corbin, you're speaking too fast. Well, what's going? Put me down to 0.75 speed. A lot of my viewers like me speaking fast. Past that, though, it's made it clear to me that, yes, an AI software playlist will come out where I show you how to build out a front end and a back end and basically create your own AI software. Like, not a GPT wrapper, because that's lame. I'm sorry if any of y'all made a GPT wrapper, but like an actual specialized use case for a AI and software. So keep in touch with this channel. Make sure to subscribe. This isn't always a code heavy type of channel. Although it seems like I need to branch out a little bit in this sector because there is a lot of like people not really making content in this realm. So I guess I'll fulfill this need. In this video though, we're just going to show you how to set up. So the end goal of this video is I'm going to get a website like this. I'm going to go to make sure I can't really zoom in here, but basically you're going to have it so it's pushed to a very specific URL that's your own hosting URL. On top of that, we're going to be able to launch it within our own local machine. This will make more sense as we go. By the end of this video, you're going to have an understanding of how to set up a project within VS Code that's going to allow you to basically add text and that's going to show up on a web page. May sound simple on the surface, and honestly, it kind of is once you see the steps towards it, but you're going to learn a lot here. Last little thing here. If you want to see lesson 1, this goes over the what, how, and why I'm even doing all this and gives you an indication of the cost you save and any other cost that would be associated with creating out a website of this manner. I'll link it up there. Let's jump in. The first major thing that we're going to do together right now is create ChatGPT custom instructions. This is imperative. This is going to give you the ability to, if you run into walls, if you run into issues, if you're like, what the heck does this mean? You can paste it into your ChatGPT. It will already be lasered in for your specific context, and you'll get better answers. In the Google Doc, I provide example instructions, and these are going to be the ones I use personally. Let me go over them line by line so you can really understand why we do what we do. It goes without saying you're going to need a ChatGPT Plus account. That's just part of the game. In theory, you could use this on a free plan. It's just going to take you a lot longer if you have more questions when dealing with this kind of stuff. For now, though, let's go to custom instructions. We're going to go up to our profile here, hit customize ChatGPT. I'm going to go ahead and clear this, and then we'll add it one by one together. First thing you need to understand about custom instructions is that if you are running into issues with ChatGPT when it comes to why are you talking about this right now, you get into random rabbit holes. Like, don't go that far, ChatGPT. I wasn't even talking about Pluto. We were talking about Saturn. This is what you need to leverage. So the first thing we're going to go over is what would you like ChatGPT to know about you to provide better responses? Let's go ahead and paste this over. And that's the reason I'm leaving this Google Doc is because it's easier for you just to paste and, copy and paste. It's annoying when people use like, sign up to my free newsletter and then get this Google Doc. No. It's just there. This is the instructions for my specific context. If you don't know my specific context and you just skip to lesson 2, basically I'm taking this entire landing page and I'm making it my own and I don't have to pay $18 anymore. Cha-ching. For you, you're going to basically fill in your context, but let's go line by line. For me, I am creating a Web Cafe AI landing page using Visual Studio Code on macOS, primarily with React for the front end and Firebase as the back end. For you, simply put in the use case of the type of website you're creating. This can be long, this can be short. For me, straight to the point. Number 2, using Visual Studio Code on macOS, put in your operating system, or using Windows. This is actually important because of some of the shorthands and short keys is going to be really relevant to your operating system. For me, it's macOS. Also, the actual area you're putting the code in, which I think all y'all would just use Visual Code Studio or Visual Studio Code. Next, we're going to identify what we're using for the front end and what we're using the back end. Corbin, what's a front end? This is a front end. Like what we're seeing right here and what we interact with is the front end. What's a back end? If I were to save this, that communicates to a data thing or a database or data structure in the back end. A lot of these lessons are going to be dedicated to the front end, but it's still good to identify the back end. For example, in this context, we're going to use Firebase for hosting. What do you mean hosting, Corbin? Basically, where our website's going to exist on the internet. So we're going to identify we're using Firebase as the back end. The primary goal is to make an optimized landing page. That's the goal. What's your goal? My coding style preferences remain the same with the parentheses around parameters and arrow functions and minimal spaces inside object braces. The reason I add that personally is I noticed that at least in the past, there was issues when it came to coding with J6 and React, and ChatGPT was giving some bad code in the sense that they weren't giving the correct brackets. So I added that. That's also good for you to know that if you're ever getting bad outputs or the code and you're noticing a reoccurring issue, you can go ahead and identify stuff like that. But for the most part, you won't ever have to deal with bad code. The new project directory is CD Coffee Fuel. What does that mean, Corbin? Don't worry. This is going to be where you reference it in terminal when we reference it later. What do you mean terminal? Basically, terminal is how we're going to, send commands to GitHub, send commands to VS Code, send commands to Firebase. What do you mean by that? Don't worry. We'll get into it. All you need to know, it's your directory. What's your directory? Where we store our code branches. What's a code branch? Basically, all the files of code. And then finally, put in your GitHub username. And for me, it's Coffee Fuel Bump. Now, before I go to how would you like ChatGPT respond, let's just get some stuff out of the way real quick. Make sure to download VS Code onto your system. For me, it's macOS. For you, it might be Windows. Download it. Go to github.com, put in an email, choose your profile name. That's what I referenced in the ChatGPT custom instructions. Choose a profile name, and that's all you have to do for now. github.com, VS Code, all for now. Okay. Now let's go over how we would want ChatGPT to respond. So it's going to copy over my current directions. Of course, this is interchangeable as well. Personally, this is how I like it. Begin with one sentence summary of the main goal for clarity. I appreciate concise step-by-step instructions tailored to the specific code or files I'm currently working on. This is helpful, so it doesn't just start rambling and doesn't lose track of the underlying code we actually care about. Please provide code snippets or configurations that are directly relevant to Visual Studio Code, good, Mac OS, React, and Firebase. Input-output depending on whatever your situation is. Adhere to my coding style preferences. When referencing external resources or suggesting solutions, consider the context provided about my project and its current state, and Firebase integrations. This is important. You don't want to be 3 weeks down the road and all of a sudden it's asking you to install Firebase again. ChatGPT, I already installed Firebase. What are we doing here? That's annoying. This solves it. Before providing any step-by-step instructions, first ask for clarification on the specific updates or changes I'd like to make. Avoid making assumptions. That's big. About installed packages or completed steps unless explicitly mentioned. And then just as a fun one, talk to me like Jarvis from Iron Man with an emphasis on maintaining code consistency and clarity. That's our custom instructions. Those are valuable. Set them for your use case. Save. Our custom instructions are done. Now let's start the fun. Stop talking, Corbin. You've been talking too much. Just get going. All right, I got it. One last thing I want to point out before we get going here is make sure to click that Google Doc / click the link that you'll see for this ChatGPT chat. Why are you telling me that, Corbin? Because if you get stuck with anything I'm about to show you today, use this. Ask it questions, put in the specific error, and give it context of your specific situation. And if it gets really bad, send a comment down, someone to help you out. Let's jump in. Here we go. We got a brand new VS Code here. Nothing's happened to it. Let's create our directory. This is how we're going to reference it on our local machine. And on top of that, how we're going to reference it later on when calling Git or GitHub. Don't click off. I know. You're seeing terminal. You're like, I've never even opened that before, Corbin. What are we doing? Don't worry. Don't click off. This is actually really easy. I know terminal can be scary sometimes, all right? Let's just first go ahead and create our project. All relevant terminal commands can be found within that Google Docs. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste using the exact same step flow, explain the context, and proceed. So obviously our first thing here is the directory. We're going to use mkdir squiggly / and your directory. So let's go and name it. This is important. I'm going to name my directory Web Cafe Land. Whatever you name it, this is going to be it forever. You could change it. It gets difficult. Just name it something you like. For me, Web Cafe Land. Boom. Now let's go ahead and actually reference that in the terminal. To do so, we're going to do cd squiggly / Web Cafe Land. Command C, delete, Command V. Now before I hit enter here, copy it. Why are we copying it? We're going to use a little cheat sheet for our terminal commands. We get used to them, understand them, copy, paste them over. This will make more sense. On Mac OS, it's called stickies. On Windows, I have no clue. Someone in the comments let them know. But for now, we're going to paste this. As this is our directory, I'm going to remove that little bolding, which means that we're going to be referencing this a lot in the future. So it's always nice just to have a little cheat sheet. Boom. First thing in our cheat sheet, hit enter. Notice how within our terminal command now, it actually leads to that specific directory. So far, so good. Once we're in this directory, we're going to go ahead and make a VS Code project with it. And this is how we're going to import all of our stuff. So all we need to do is do code dot. Hit enter, and then watch this. Or it's going to pop up here, not there. So there we go, though. We are so far, so good. We are in our new VS Code project, which is Web Cafe Land. Step 2 here is done. You just completed step 2. That's it. Set up VS Code project. Boom. Good to go. Now let's go ahead and install React. To install React, it's pretty simple. We're just going to copy this. Make sure we're in our directory. How do I know if I'm in the directory, Corbin? It's right there. If you're ever out of a directory, let's say you create a new terminal window, go ahead and grab that original command, cd, hit paste, enter, and you're back at it. Let's install React though. What is React? React is going to be our front end. This is how we're going to create designs and visual elements within the actual website itself. I'm going to hit paste here, hit enter. And this is going to get loaded in here. Nice little load bars. I know this looks crazy. No, this is not the Matrix. No, I'm not hacking something right now. I feel like if we were watching like some cliche hacker movie, they would probably run this on like the screen and you'd be like, oh, this person's up to something. It's like, nah, it's just downloading. Let it download. With all this downloading, you'll see it up there. And funny enough, look at that little messages left me. Happy hacking. No, chill. We're just making a landing page. We're not doing anything crazy. Boom, done. We've successfully installed the framework for our front end. What's next, Corbin? Let's create this GitHub. And the reason we're creating GitHub, or we're not creating GitHub, but we're creating a repository on GitHub, is that we can push this and put our code in the cloud, which becomes very useful in a lot of different contexts. Here we go. Okay, so we're in GitHub, you're logged in, you made your profile, you have like your name, which for me is Coffee Fuel Bump. Coffee Fuel, Bumpups, bumpups.com, check it out. We're gonna go ahead and create a repository name. This is how we're gonna reference it when we are making our entire Git flows. For me, I just like to keep it the same name. So we're gonna do Web Cafe LAN, for you would be whatever yours is. We're gonna paste it in here. And because of the fact that this is gonna be your website for your business, you're gonna wanna select private here. You don't want anyone else to see your code. Create new repository. So far, so good. Now we need to actually set up our underlying repository and connect it to our VS Code project. Now, all this kind of looks crazy, but don't worry, we'll make it simple. Start off with a simple command of git init. No, we're not Australian. No, I'm not from the UK. Init kind of crazy, mate. Shrimp on the barbie. I haven't been to Outback Steakhouse in a long time. I think I need to go back. They have like a really good filet mignon. Once we do git init, our Google Doc asks us to do a very simple commit here. So we're going to go ahead and do echo. This is going to create a README file. Also, I'll go ahead and explain this a little bit more. So this is going to create a README file. We're also trying to basically create our first commit here, which shouldn't work right away because it's a private repo, we need to add a little bit of like, hey, we're the actual person that owns this and no one else can push to it. This will make more sense. First off, just grab that code or terminal command and paste it. Once we've done that, we've added our README file. The README file is like their kind of like, how do you start using React? Like, what's going on here? In reality, I can go like this and be like, I want some coffee. All a README file is that if you pass this to another developer, you can use it as a reference, basically. Like, if you've installed stuff, you probably know what a README file is. Like, the one I use for my main software is pretty funny what we have in there. Let's go ahead and actually connect to Git, though, from now. Now, for this next command, we're going to do a little bit of copy and pasting. I'll explain why. Go ahead and copy this. And for now, I'm going to just add it to the bottom. I'll delete this once, like, this video comes out. Let's make my life easy. You're going to go and paste it, and notice what it's asking for. So the first thing it's asking for is your username. Your username is your GitHub username, which is over here. So for me, it's that. For me, it's Coffee Bump or Coffee Fuel Bump. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to paste. Don't worry about the link, or I'll make it unlink. Paste. Now, the Git, or your repo, we come back over here, is going to be the Web Cafe land, or your name. So that was what we identified as the repo when we created the repo. Like when I hit that little create repo button, that's what it is. Paste. Now we got to add an origin for where this is coming from. So we're going to go ahead and add our username here again, Coffee Fuel Bump, whatever you are. We're going to go ahead and add your personal access token. This next part, I know for a fact, is going to get the most amount of replays months, if not years from now, because what I'm about to show you gets annoying if you forget how to do it. But don't worry. We're going to come up to our developer profile here, and we're going to go ahead and hit settings. In our settings here, we're going to go down to developer settings. Here, we're going to go ahead and go to personal access tokens. We're going to go to fine-grained tokens. For some clarity, all we're doing here is basically making it so that GitHub understands that on our local machine or our laptop or your desktop, it understands that you actually own the ability to access that code within the cloud. Think of it as quite literally your password, quite literally a key to a door. If you didn't have access to this personal fine-grained token, then you wouldn't be able to access your repo. So we're going to go ahead and hit generate new token. Put in your password. Now, this is why I know this is going to be the most replayed part of this video, because the way the security works when it comes to this is that this token will expire. Therefore, we need to reuse or create a new token and then put it back into our terminal. Knowing this, you can set to 30 days, 90 days, 60 days, or indefinite. Choose your amount. For me, I'll go with 60. Token name. We'll do Web Cafe land token. Description, add it if you want. For the repository access, let's choose the repository that's relevant to. For us, it's going to be the Web Cafe land. This is the repository we just created in today's video. Scroll back if you forgot. For the permissions, everything. Everything, Corbin, everything. So for every single one of these, I'm not going to show me doing it, but we're going to go ahead and just put the max amount of access. Why are we doing this, Corbin? This is because this is your code. This is your project. So you want to basically be able to do everything that can be done when accessing your code. Therefore, let's make this all read and write. Account permissions, same deal. Read and write. By the end, you should see something like 27 permissions for your one repository, 14 account permissions, generate token. Now, I might have to blur that out just because it's my token. But for you, you're going to see a huge string here. It's going to start with GitHub here. You're going to hit copy. Extremely important. Don't lose this. If you go out of this page, you won't be able to see this token ever again. So I suggest you copy it and know where you're putting it. Let's go ahead and put it back over to that Google Doc. Well, actually, I can't because then people can roll back. So I'm actually going to have to move that entire text to something else. So I'm going to copy this. Before I add that token, let me just add the last thing here so we can push it over. So your username, same deal. Your repo, again, is the name of the repository you made in Git. So I'm going to paste it here. Then just paste in your access token. You're going to simply come over here and paste. Now for me, there's going to be a section here that's just like completely white. That's because I'm still protecting the access token, but just paste. It should have all your relevant information in. And then all you have to do is hit enter. I went ahead and hit enter a couple more times so you don't see my access token still, but you should get a message like that basically we have successfully created this new branch. And what you'll notice is that all the information that we had in that branch shows up here as well. So there we go. We have access to everything that we created with that VS Code so far. So let me just do one push with you so you can understand how you take local code, push it to the cloud. And I think the easiest way to do that is let's update this README. Two major things I want you to note here. When you make a change to a file, you'll notice a couple things. First thing you'll notice is that you'll get a little one here that tells you there's been a change based off the original code. Okay, so we haven't saved yet to GitHub. The second thing you'll notice is that there'll be a little bit of an asterisk here. That tells us that something's different with the file than our original branch. Just to clarify this a little bit more, if I Command C this, and I go back to what the README originally said, which was this, notice how, and I hit save, notice how that one goes away, the main doesn't have the asterisk anymore, and the README isn't yellow. Basically, what's happening here is what we see here. Therefore, there's nothing to change. There's nothing to push. Y'all are good. But let's go and do a push together so you can understand how to push. I'm going to hit Command A, Command V. I want some coffee. Do you want some coffee? It's weird. I find the best coffee is typically at like diners, like really good breakfast areas, right? Corned beef hash, maybe some pancakes sometimes, maybe not. Usually it's corned beef hash, sourdough toast, under easy on the eggs, straight coffee. It's even better if they give me a pitcher. You need a little water on the side too. That is the way to start your day. With us changing the README here, we're going to come back to our terminal, and you're going to do your first commit here. If you have never done a commit before, you're about to see it here live. You're about to see it here live. So what we're going to do is this. This is how we push a new save. We're going to do git add dot git commit dash m and then quotation marks. This is how we're naming it. This is how it shows up as like a new push to the branch. This will make sense once I push it. New README. And this can be anything. Quotation mark. Tells you that there has been a change, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to say git push origin. And this is going to be pushing to the branch. And right now you can see the branch's name is main. So I just got to do main. And boom. What just happened, Corbin? Come back over here. Reload this. First thing you'll notice is that now the most recent branch is new README. I clicked that. What happened to new README? Oh, we deleted everything in the README and we just added I want coffee. I guess someone wants coffee, but there you go. We've successfully just pushed a new change to our branch together. Now, if anything I just described there is like super confusing or you're like, Corbin, what's a branch? I want you to think of branches as like we have our main branch, right? This is what we're going to use as like the main thing the website's going to see. If we ever want to make features past this, typically we make new branches. We call those new branches a specific feature name, such as add footer. Then we will merge that add footer branch to the main branch so that we have a stable main branch. We'll get into it. Don't worry. In this lesson series, I'll walk you through step by step. And on top of that, if there's anything that just happened in that entire flow that you're like, what the heck just happened? Ask that ChatGPT chat I just had, or I showed you earlier, like the one I shared. And what you'll notice is that once we push, if I click this, it all goes away. Main's regular, not yellow. I want some coffee. Boom. Number 3 is done. We have successfully connected our GitHub to our VS Code. Now let's go ahead and install Firebase. Now, before we do that, actually, let me show you that it works and that we have a front end, which is not connected to Firebase, and we can do some cool stuff. So in order to do that, we're going to come back to our terminal. Usually what I like to do is create a new terminal for the use case of what you're about to see right now. And what you're about to see right now is if we run this website on our local machine. When I say local machine, anytime I say local, I'm referencing your actual computer has zero access to the internet. And the idea here is that if I gave you this URL of localhost 3000, you wouldn't be able to see what I see because it's ran on my machine. With any prompt, when communicating with your project, you're going to start that CD. That's why we created this cheat sheet. So let's add another thing to our cheat sheet. The additional thing we're going to add to our cheat sheet is npm start. What this does for us is this is going to launch it in a web page for us to play around with, and it's going to be local. So I do npm start, hit enter, boom, starting development server. What you'll notice is that in the URL itself, which I can't really zoom in well here, you'll see localhost 3000. So let's add to a cheat sheet again. Anytime you're developing not to an actual website link that everyone can access, we're going to do localhost 3000, as this is going to be our ability to create edits on the go. Let me show you what I mean. Now, this is going to be our first line of code together. What? We're going to go to app.js. Now, right now, you might be like, how the heck did you know that? Don't worry. This is basically what we're deploying. This is how you will deploy the front end. This is what's referenced. We're going to create other files here. But all I want you to look at right now is to understand the utility of a local machine. So right now, it says edit src app.js and save to reload. And that's actually quite literally what we're going to do. But the idea here is this. It says that right now, right? Watch how fast we can make it instantly change. So we go like this. I'm going to minimize that real quick. And if I say, nah, I'm good, boom. That's the utility here. Instantaneous changes to see instantaneous reactions of what our front end would look like. Got it? Now that you know that, in order to stop it from building to localhost 3000, you either force quit your terminal or alternatively format it's Control-C. This will stop any process. And we're done. Therefore, if I come back to that exact same URL, you'll see the site cannot be reached. Now let's go ahead and install Firebase. Copy. We're going to go ahead and paste npm install Firebase. This is going to give us the dependencies and the packages that are required to show up here for our use of Firebase as a project. What can you do with Firebase? Storage, hosting, functions, a ton of stuff. Hit enter. We are loading in. What you'll notice is that when we install Firebase, it's going to show up in our package lock.json and our package.json. It'll show up like this. This is where we install dependencies. For example, if you were to install if you were to install Stripe, it would show up here as well. This is the version right here, and this is the underlying package we're installing or dependency. Now that we've installed Firebase, let's actually create a Firebase project that we can reference and use within our project. Now that we're over in Firebase here, we're going to create our own new project. For you, the user interface is probably going to look different because you probably haven't created a project yet. For me, I already got one. We're going to add project. To start off here, we need a project name. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to use the same name I've been using across this tutorial, which is Web Cafe Landing. I'm going to hit continue. It's going to ask whether you want Google Analytics enabled or not. I think if you're making a website, you probably do. So I'm going to hit continue. Make sure that is selected. Make sure you check all the relevant information it's requesting here. Create project. We are loading in to our project that will make it $0 a month and no more website fee. Oh yeah, it's ready to go. Let's jump in. Continue. We are in our Firebase project here. Let's go ahead and add some side tabs right here. They'll become more relevant in future tutorials. So we're going to go to build here. Let's add Firestore database. Let's add functions. Let's add hosting. Don't worry. Right now, we're just going to deal with hosting and actually creating this project over here. So let's go ahead and select web. What's going to be your web app name? Let's do Web Cafe Landing again. Web Cafe Landing. And you'll notice there's already an option to set up hosting with it as well. Because that's the whole purpose of this lesson, we're going to do that. We're going to do Web Cafe Landing. That's fine. Register app. Once you do that, you're going to get a code block that's going to be relevant for you. Now, this is blurred out because obviously this is private information. But you'll also be provided with a hosting URL that we'll actually be able to push our code to on a live web browser. We went ahead and already did the first step here. Let's do the second step. Coming over to our next command line here, we're going to do torch src firebase.js. This is just going to create a file for us to put all this relevant information in. Command V, enter, boom. With this firebase.js file, let's copy over that code it just provided. As I referenced in the Google Doc, same deal, same situation, but all your variables are going to be there. Now, I noticed one thing that doesn't show up in the Google Doc, but it does show up here is your analytics, which will be your measurement ID, and also just analytics, get analytics app. That's all you have to do for now, though. Paste it in. You'll learn further lessons of how to leverage this. Make sure to command save. Now that we have the file structured and we've created a project here, let's go ahead and initialize tools. To do so, we're going to do npm install g Firebase tools. These are what's going to give us the ability to do hosting, functions, and Firestore. Hit enter. As I referenced earlier, if you run into issues, use that ChatGPT chat and straight up just copy and paste the entire error message from that the terminal message, and it will take you in the right direction. Okay, now that we've installed the tools, let's actually log into our Firebase account so we can access it within our VS Code. All we need to do is this: Firebase log in, enter. I'm actually already logged in, so I'm actually gonna do Firebase log out so you can see the process here. Very, very, very important. Anytime you plan on coding, using Firebase, doing anything basically, just start your day by doing Firebase login. Let's add it to the cheat sheet. Add Firebase login, Firebase log out to your cheat sheet, real quick, in and out. Firebase login. When they ask all this information, you're gonna say Y, which stands for yes. Once you're here, choose the account that you did this entire setup with. For me, it's contact@webcafeai.com. Hit continue. Enter your password. Once you're entering your password, you're going to come down here and hit allow. And you should get a message like that. It'll show as success, logged in as your email, and you're good to go. Now that we're logged into Firebase and it understands that this project exists and we have access to it, we need to initialize it. Initializing in this context is that anytime we want to use a specific feature within Firebase, such as hosting, functions, database, you need to initialize it. You only need to do this once typically. And once you got it going, you got it going. For me, I'm going to do Firebase init. Now you have a ton of different options here. For us, we're going to go ahead and scroll down to hosting because that's what we're doing in today's video. We're going to do hosting, configure files for Firebase hosting, and optionally set up GitHub action deploys. We're going to hit space. Then we're going to hit enter. We're going to select use existing project. We're going to choose our project, which should show up. Web Cafe Landing, Web Cafe Landing. What do you want to use as your public directory? That's going to be this right here. We're going to say public. So we're going to hit enter. Configure as a single page app. We're going to say yes. Set up automatic builds and deploys with GitHub. We'll say no for now. File public/index HTML already exists. Overwrite. We're going to say no. That's very important. And there we go. Once we've done that, you'll notice is that we'll have a new two files here. We'll have the firebase.json and we'll have the Firebase RC. Let's go ahead and see this all working together. So first off, let's come back to our Firebase project. We're going to go to hosting. We're going to get started here. For the most part, this should already be initialized. We actually need to deploy. So let's actually do that real quick. And before we do that, we're actually going to build it first. To build it is npm run build. What does that mean, Corbin? npm run build means in this context, this is like React compiling the front end. This is like the visual element. We're building first. Firebase deploy is like us deploying the back end. Front end deployment, back end development, or back end deployment. So first, let's build our app. It's going to be npm run build. This is different from npm start. npm start is like the local 3000. npm run build means we're building this file into an optimized production build that can then be pushed to our website. There we go. We've successfully built it. This is also the sizing of your app if you're interested. Now, let's go to deploy. Firebase deploy. Early days, this is going to be extremely fast for obvious reasons. You got a small application. As you keep going, though, this could take a while. For now, though, we've successfully deployed. Let's check out this website. Now, sometimes you get an error like this where you're getting a white page here, but not an emulator. Typically, this has to be associated with the index.html. Let me go ahead and confirm this first. And while we confirm this, we're going to actually do a little trick here. You can actually run two terminal commands simultaneously. So doing npm run build Firebase deploy pushes your entire application. So I'm going to go and paste that, hit enter here. We're going to build it first and then deploy it. And there we go. It worked perfectly. There is one thing you need to change in order for this to actually happen. The issue that was occurring here was that the JSON was referencing the wrong area to build the deployment. So in this firebase.json, you're going to see public here. Switch that to build, and then this should push perfectly. To prove it to you, all we got to do is come to our Firebase here. If you go to hosting, these are going to be previous deployments, and then you can click either of these links. Come over here. You click either of these links, it's going to take us to that page. And this is a live URL. This exists on the internet. Now, whether we actually let robots crawl it and cite ML, that's going to be a later conversation. But for now, there we go. We've successfully created a connection between GitHub, VS Code, Firebase, and created it all together to the endpoint of having a deployed Firebase hosting or the website we're going to be building from here on out. Now, I want to point out that if you had questions during this process, talk to that ChatGPT chat. But on top of that, I'm going to go into more detail of what those files represent, what it means to do all this, as I know this may have been a little bit fast and kind of glossing over some of those facts. That's because of the fact that, you're going to have lesson 3, you're going to have lesson 4 to set that all up and understand at a deeper level what every single folder means there, what every single file means there. For now, though, we've successfully done lesson 2 here, where we set up a VS Code project. We've connected it to GitHub. We understand now how to install Firebase and use Firebase hosting. We'll use other stuff in that as well. But for now, we're good to go. Now we're on to lesson 3. In lesson 3, we're going to go over security and how to set that up for your VS Code project. And then we're going to build a very simple user interface together, and I'm going to show you how to render that on a website live. And then finally, we're going to go over SEO. Let's get started, y'all. We are going to do this today. This is the guideline. As you already know, this Google Doc is going to be in the description down below. I'm also going to include a ChatGPT chat that is specialized for today's lesson. So if you run into walls, run into issues, have questions, ask it. In addition, if you are skipping to lesson 3, or this is the first video you're watching in this series, I encourage you to go back to lesson 1 and start from the beginning, as some of this may look very foreign to you or may look like what is going on. But in reality, we already did all this. So make sure to watch lesson 1, watch lesson 2, and that can kind of get you to the point of what we're about to do in today's video. Last 2 things to note here. Make sure to leave a like right off the bat. because you're going to get a ton of free value. This is a free doc, free ChatGPT chat. And by the end of this entire series, you're going to be able to have a website hosted on a custom URL for free, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, considering how much Webflow, Shopify, WordPress, and all these different websites are charging you nowadays. Therefore, number 2, get a cup of coffee. Let's get to it. No cream, no sugar. Let's just do number 1, which is setting up security. So what we're going to do to set up security is we're going to go to Craigslist. We're going to set up a job posting. We're going to say, $22 an hour to protect. No, I'm just joking. But in this, we're going to show you what security means in this context. So there's plenty of ways to do security in Firebase itself when it comes to storage. Like you'll set up storage rules. This gets into more advanced development. For our specific use case today, it's purely going to be so we can protect high-risk variables. What do I mean by high-risk variables? In the previous lesson, we had set up together our Firebase config variables. This is going to connect us to Firebase. That's just going to allow us to do our hosting. But these variables are high risk. If anyone ever got access to those, they could do some crazy stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create a .env. I'm going to show you the use case. I'm going to show you why we create these, because another reason we're going to need this .env is that when we set up our webhooks to handle the conversion event, in my context, the conversion event will be when a user provides their email, which puts them into my mailing list. Now, in order to do a conversion event like that, we're going to need some type of webhook in order to communicate with our newsletter provider. That webhook itself is high risk. Therefore, we're going to put that in the env file as well in a later lesson. If anything I just said to you doesn't make any sense, and you're like, what did this dude just ramble about for the last 30 seconds? Don't worry. Step by step, let's jump into it. This Google Doc will be filled out completely by the end of this video. Right now, it's not finished because I'm doing this all live. Let's do number 1 together. We're going to set up our security with an environment variable. But before we do that, go to your cheat sheet. What's the cheat sheet, Corbin? Were you here for lesson 2? No? And that's why you don't know what the cheat sheet is. Coming over to a cheat sheet, grab your directory, Command-C, paste it, enter. Now we're in a directory. Last video, we connected this to GitHub so we can push our code into the cloud. Let's follow some best practices here, or just things you should do so you don't run into errors. What do we start with? Firebase log out. Firebase log out. But Corbin, I logged in yesterday. Do I have to do this again? Yes, because you will run into errors that shouldn't happen. That's like, I did everything right, but I'm running into an error still. These are the kind of things that you just set up in your workflow when you start coding for a day, or at least start messing around for a day, that you just want to do. Firebase log out, Firebase log in. I know y'all seen Karate Kid. Wash on, wash off. Kind of same deal here. There we go. We're logged back in. We're good to go. We could take this one step further here and make sure it uses the correct project. So let's go do that as well. Now, in order to find what your project name is, you could either go to firebase.com or alternatively just ask it within your terminal. Let's do that. Firebase project, semicolon, list. Enter. And sometimes you get little errors like this. And sometimes it can help you. So it says basically, I forgot to add the S. Let's try again. With this command, Firebase projects list, you can add that to your cheat sheet if you want to. You can find out what the project ID is that you can reference. So now that I know my project ID is Web Cafe Landing, what I can do to ensure that there's no issues with the emulator, no issues when I'm pushing to it in the staging environment or production environment, I guess in this context, we just do Firebase use Web Cafe Landing. But Corbin, it said it was already using it. Trust me. Best practices. This is what's going to help you a lot. Also, another thing I want to note is that when I logged into Firebase, it asked me to install an update for Firebase. If you're only 1 or 2 versions off, it's not that big of a deal. It only gets into a big deal for really large updates. So don't worry about that kind of stuff. You don't have to be fully up to date with the dependencies you use. Now, in the previous video, we did a ton of stuff, but we never pushed it to the cloud or GitHub. So let's go do that right now. This is always a good practice that if you really mess up, like you delete a file and you don't know what the heck happened, you can roll back to a previous commit. We're going to do git add. Git commit -m quotes, and then let's name it. We're going to say Firebase and get connected. We're naming it so that if we really mess up on our new version here, we can roll back to this and we're good to go. We're good to go again. Git push origin and then the branch name main. Boom. This all should go away. All went away. And then this new README is going to change to the most recent branch we just pushed here, which is Firebase and get connected. You can actually see what's changed within that Firebase push or git push and basically make sure everything looks good there. But now we can roll back to that if we run into issues. It's kind of like you're playing a video game and you started at level 2, you get to level 4 and you're like, wait, I missed an Easter egg in level 2. So you go all the way back to level 2 to make sure that you get that right. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, let's go. Now that we got all that out of the way, best practices, let's do number 1 here. In our terminal, we're going to do touch.env. Enter. When we do touch.env, this is going to create a very specific type of file. What does this file represent, Corbin? This represents any high-risk variable, keys, API keys, anything security you put in here and then you reference it in the project from this file. So the next step we have to do here is we have to ensure that this specific file doesn't push to GitHub. But to be honest with you, to make this even more clear, let's do an example together of the type of information we'll put in this .env. I'm going to go ahead and cover this just because, these are high risk. But when we set this up in lesson 2, we don't actually want to reference the specific API key, auth domain, project ID, storage bucket, all of this within the actual firebase.js file itself. Therefore, go to the Google Doc, paste this over. We're going to do this. We'll do a hashtag here to name it. This is like commenting out code. This is basically stuff that's not read, but it's purely for your use case of like understanding what this is. I'm just going to capitalize Firebase. Why are we doing this? Because of the fact that when we add future things to this env, this just helps with organization. So for example, another one I could add is webhooks, and then we'll basically utilize this in the future. As you see here, what are we going to put here? Basically, your API key, your auth domain, your project ID, everything that you saw within that firebase.js, I want you to copy it and paste it over here. Now, once we pasted all that information in the .env, this is how we reference it in firebase.js. Let's identify a couple things here. First, React app API key. That naming is exactly how it's named here. So when we reference it here, we're doing process.env.react app API key. This is the variable that we set here. And the reason we set it like this is for security reasons. This .env is local to us. When we build with it, it is encrypted. This is high security. Then we just follow that same logic across this file. Boom, done. One is out of the way. We've successfully set up a .env, which will reference in future workflows to securitize high-risk variables. High-risk variables, not to beat a dead horse here, is just variables you wouldn't want the general internet to know. This could be a Stripe key. This could be your OpenAI API key to access AI, like very high security variables here. On top of that, when you deal with backend functions, you'll have a .env like this, but also you'll use a cloud form of security, such as keys within Google Cloud. This will make more sense, and that kind of stuff I just described there is going to be more relevant for my AI software tutorials that will come out later this year. But for now, number one is done. Which leads us to number 2. If this .env is high risk, we can't have this in the cloud either unless you do the measures that I described earlier. We don't want this in our GitHub. So we're going to use a file within our VS Code called .gitignore. What this file does is it just ignores these files and doesn't push them to the cloud. So when I make an update from the main branch, let's say I make an update to app.js, those changes go to GitHub or GitHub. But if I had app.js here, those changes would not go to GitHub. Knowing this, the way we approach it is we simply just add .env here as well. I'm gonna come right here and type in .env. That simple. I want you to notice the change here. It's green right now, which means it hasn't been pushed to our GitHub. It's like, yo, I'm supposed to be in the cloud, bro. Put me in the cloud. But when I add it here, .env, that green goes away. Just like some of y'all, when you invested in NFTs in 2021, that green went away. All right, I faced it too, okay? We were all in the same boat during 2021. Don't worry about it. We all made some money, lost some money. We'll leave it in 2021. But there you go. Now, your next question might be, Corbin, why is there .local, .development local, .test local, .production local, and all this? When we set up logic when building out a website, and especially when building out software, there's like 3 major stages here. I don't want to get too deep into this. This might have to be a whole lesson in itself, but this is a quick overview. Let me just try to describe it to you as best as possible. I don't want to get stuck here, but let me explain this as fast as possible. So we got our main branch. This is the code. And let me shrink down. You know, like in Super Mario, when I hit a mushroom or hit a shell, I go doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. We got our main branch, and this is going to get into more logic about setting up different branches and committing, but for right now, all we need to understand is why is there a .env, why is there a let's call it a staging environment, and why is there a .production environment. We got main, and we got our 3 envs. This is probably going to make a lot of sense. We're going to do env, and then we'll do QA. Staging can be called QA, and prod. .env is your local environment. Your local environment is what you saw in lesson 2 with the Firebase emulator on your laptop. This doesn't connect to the internet. If you break something very severely, it doesn't really matter because you just can close the program. No one has access to it because it's on a localhost 3000. The variables that are associated with this, like they're all connected to this local environment. Coming over to .env.qa/.env.staging. What's the difference between staging and QA? Just a different way to pronounce the same thing. Potato, potato. What this environment is it's exactly like your production environment, but it uses its own variables. This is what developers use when they push out an update to confirm it works in a live website. If it's confirmed that everything works perfectly and no breaks incur, then it's pushed to prod, which kind of makes obvious what prod is then, right? .env.prod is like the live website, but people on Google see as the website. Like this is like anyone in the world goes to this website, that's your prod. That's why like when you push to prod, it's a big deal. You don't want to work in prod. You want to make sure anything you push to prod works perfectly. Therefore, your variables in your .env between the local and staging are going to be basically the exact same to an extent. When it comes to OpenAI keys, when it comes to Firebase hosting, when it comes to all those kind of variables, they will be the same between these two. This is due to the fact that because the local and the staging is all for testing and development. The only differentiation you're going to see between a .env and a .env.qa is going to be like the underlying URLs that are referenced. In a local environment, we're going to be using that local host URL. In the staging and QA environment, we're going to be using like a live website URL to do the functions and to everything necessary for that process. Now, the ENV and QA are going to be completely different than the prod. The prod is going to have its own unique IDs, own unique variables. Everything's going to be unique to prod because it's production. We're live. Let's get going. Someone hit record. If you have any questions on that, ask ChatGPT, that chat that I specialized in that Google Doc / in the description down below. On top of that, leave a comment down below. Let me know if that was confusing. That might have been a lot of information at once. I try to explain as best as possible. I could go a lot deeper than that to explain it even better, but some of y'all that already know what ENVs are, like, Corbin, come on. And then the ones that don't even have an idea what an ENV is like, Corbin, come on. Okay, 1 out of the way, 2 out of the way. Let's hit 3. Purpose of number 3 here is building out the homepage itself. This is going to lead into structuring of how we do our folders here, how everything communicates, stuff like that. Best practices here is, let's begin. We're going to hit right click here. We're going to say new folder. The first new folder we're going to add here is just going to be called assets. What are we going to add in assets? This is just going to be images and GIFs. New folder again, GIFs. Therefore, if we ever need to add images, we'll add them in the images folder. GIFs, we'll add them in the GIFs folder. And then the assets is just like the parent folder to make this all more organized. Now, let's go ahead and create the folder that's going to store our homepage. I'm going to do new folder here, and I'm just going to say views. There we go. With views, this is where we're going to go ahead and store our homepage.js and homepage.css. Now, there is a way I can approach this where we could basically make a bunch of different components. What is a component? Think of a component like if I were to come here, one component could be like this top bar. Another component could be the actual page itself. Don't worry about that right now. For now, we're just going to do homepage.js and homepage.css. As I referenced earlier, check out that Google Doc. The code that I'm going to show you in this video is going to be available there. We're going to say new file, homepage.js. New file, homepage.css. Now, this specific lesson, I'm going to provide the code, walk you through it a little bit, explain it a little bit, but this isn't going to be the lesson where I show you like the new way of coding, the new way of using ChatGPT to code out an entire page. That's probably going to come next, or maybe the lesson after that. Purpose of this specific lesson is for you to understand how to connect this to this, render it on a website, understand how to read the code, basically. Like, I got to give you a little bit of context of how to read the code before I show you how to code with AI. Therefore, let's begin. I went ahead and pasted this over. You can paste this over from the Google Doc as well. I'm going to walk you through step by step here what everything means. Now, the beauty when coding with AI in this new method is that you don't have to deal with typing all this. This stuff can be outputted fast using layman dictation. Let's go and explain this real quick, though. First, imports. What are imports, Corbin? Imports are things we'll use in this file. This is a React-based app. Therefore, we're going to import React and a use state. I put this logic here just to show you the difference in how a file is structured. Next thing, import homepage.css. If you don't know what CSS is, this is what makes things look pretty. For example, in this file, when they chose to put the JS here in the homepage, like the coloring of the actual text itself was made through CSS. Therefore, when structuring files, you'll have your imports here. What are other examples of imports? We will be importing stuff from Firebase, for example. We may be importing things such as a database, a function. In this specific series, we don't have to worry too much here because we're going to do mostly hosting. Now, coming back over to homepage.js, you're always going to wrap your quote-unquote component within these little brackets here, and you'll name it. This naming is important because we'll also export it. Therefore, when we export it, like taking it somewhere else, we will be able to export it to our app.js. Why are we exporting this to app.js? Because this is what's rendered on our website using index.js. Notice how it's imported here, and notice how it's app. Therefore, let me go ahead and add the CSS. Let's launch the emulator. This will become more clear. Now, to launch it in the emulator, all we need to do is type in npm start. Remember, that is on the cheat sheet here. This is not pushing to the actual hosting URL. This is for local use. Let's go and copy it. Simply press npm start and hit enter. Here we go. Notice how it says localhost up there. Well, this looks different, Corbin. That's because we're using this code over here. Now, just to show you what this code does for now, and the purpose of this video is purely just to teach you good practices when it comes to importing files and understanding a JS and a CSS file. All it does is just change color. Is this going to be the final landing page? No, but I want to show you functionality here. Now, real quick things. First thing, notice how if I delete this, command save, goes away there. Perfect. Live editing, live results. If there's an error, it will tell you like this, and you'll see it over here. Cool. Command Z. Boom. Furthermore, we have created a CSS for this as well. We've created a JS for this, and we've imported it. Let me explain why. Also, side note, this will all be available in the Google Docs so you can paste over as well. First major thing I want you to identify is that we've imported the homepage.css. This is where we are referencing these specific classes. When you're naming a class, you don't want to use redundant class names. For example, if I'm creating a different button for a different use case and it looks different, we want to do button. You'd add some type of hyphen here to identify it even further. For me, I just added cafe. Therefore, when we reference this class, we can build it in the CSS that's been imported here. So notice, cafe homepage, Command F, is the class right here for cafe homepage. Actually, it isn't. It looks like there was a little mess up here with the 4. Boom. There we go. And notice how it changed it as well. So, cafe homepage, cafe homepage. Next major thing to identify here. Notice how we have H1, which is header 1, and P. We can actually change the underlying way it looks using cafe homepage H1 and cafe homepage P. Think of it like cafe homepage is the parent, and then the little things in it is H1 and P. Now, alternatively, we could actually give a CSS class to each of these as well and edit them that way. What I encourage you to do is kind of set up the page that you see here. I mean, you don't have to do Welcome to Web Cafe AI, but set up the situation you see here, play around a little bit. So for example, what does margin bottom do? So we know it's H1, which is this. What does margin bottom do? Add 5. Oh, okay, so it moves it up and down. Good to know. What does font size do? 1.2. Okay, so it shrinks it. So play around with it a little bit. But as I said, when coding with AI, you don't have to worry too much about this. For example, if I'm coding with AI and I'm like, this looks cool, but I need more spacing between the header 1 and the P, I don't have to know that margin bottom does this. I can just ask AI to do it for me, and then it will give me the correct code, which we'll get into in later lessons. I'm just trying to show you what it means right now. So now that we understand that, I want you to now understand what return means. Return is what we're going to visually see here. Think of this like HTML code. HTML is the structuring of the website, and CSS is the beautifying of the website, making it look pretty. If you just have a purely HTML site, you will know. If you search the internet in like 1999, you're going to see some HTML sites. So return is going to be how it's represented on the front end. CSS is going to be how it looks on the front end. What is this, Corbin? This right here is going to be functions that we use in the front end. Now, I set up like a really dummy one right now just to show you the difference between return and the code before that. And all it does is change the color from red to blue. We'll get into more of what this means and how to do this. I just wanted to show you this example here. Notice how when we're referencing it in the HTML return here, we're referencing toggle color, toggle color, toggle color, toggle color. Say that 4 times fast. We're doing other things such as setting up booleans here, which will make more sense. Booleans are true or false. I don't want you to get too confused here. Don't worry. A lot of this will be done with AI. I just want to give you some structure. So now that we know the JS, we have CSS, and that represents this, how did we even render this? The way we rendered this is that we used our app.js. This is where we're going to put in all of our pages. We are going to use the import again. This is how we import components. We're going to import the homepage. Why is it called homepage? Because the export default is homepage. And then we're going to say where it's from. Notice how it's /. Okay. It's in views. We know that. Oh, and then it's named homepage. Okay. Boom. That's kind of the connection there. So it's the / like when you get further and further in. I'll zoom in, y'all. My bad. Finally, in order to actually show it, we are going to simply put in this kind of structuring here. Notice if I delete this, hit save, it goes away. Command Z, save, it comes back. This is going to be the structuring. Now, within a component itself, we can make more components. Don't worry, it's not that confusing. So the idea here would be this. This is good front-end structuring. The way we're going to create this homepage, is in theory, I could go out of my way to basically make the entire homepage, like the footer, the different sections, all within the same file. This is 100% possible. This is 100% doable. But for the purpose of this series, I'm going to show you how to create a homepage as the parent component. And then within the parent component, we're going to create child components. The child components are actually going to be what structure the homepage itself. What's an example of a child component? The footer of our website, the newsletter CTA of our website. So our homepage.js is going to be our parent. If that doesn't make that much sense, ask the ChatGPT chat, but don't worry. In later lessons, we'll learn more about that. We did step 4. Now we're on to step 5, which is going to be our SEO. I'm going to explain a little bit more about this. Future lessons, we're going to do a bunch more when it comes to just coding with AI and start building out this web page. But I think for now, you're getting a better grasp on how all this works when it comes to importing, exporting, and really creating a visual element. Therefore, let's set up our favicon, our logo, and the way it shows up in search. As you'll notice right now, it shows up in that little tab right there as React app and then gives me the React icon. I don't want that. So in order to change that, we're going to come over here to public. And before we do that, let's go ahead and push our commit here and just call it like homepage made. All right, let's do git add, git commit. This is always a good practice when you make like a decent amount change. Git commit homepage made. Is this going to be the final homepage? No. I just wanted to show y'all how to do it. Git push origin main. Enter. We're good to go. We've successfully committed to our branch. And if we check our branch right now, if I reload and I come over to source, you will notice that in views, we have homepage.js and all of its relevant code. Pretty nice. In public, let's go ahead and set up our favicon.ico. Let's set up our logo, which is going to be used in alternative ways of showing the favicon. And then finally, the way it shows up on the internet, or short term, at least how it shows up in our emulator. Therefore, I'm going to come to my current set right now, zoom in a ton, and just save the image to my desktop. Now go ahead and find an image software that we can go ahead and create our favicon together. This could be done in Canva as well. We're going to hit new file here. Typically, what I like doing is just starting with like a baseline of 1,000 by 1,000. I'm going to hit create. Now with this, we're going to zoom in. I'm just going to simply add my icon. Best practices for favicons and in general is typically just whatever the logo is that represents your company and how you want it to show on Google and Bing and Yahoo. So for me, I'm just going to go ahead and hit enter here. Looks pretty good. And sometimes I like to go a little bit more to the right. So I'm going to move this to the right a little bit. And that's good enough for me. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now that we've saved it to the cloud / your desktop, let's go ahead and export it. We're going to come up here to File, Export, Save as, quick export as PNG. Now, whatever software you're using, same deal, export as a PNG. I'm going to put this in my desktop and hit save. Now that we have it saved, let's go ahead and do 3 things. First thing is that we're going to have to create 2 versions of this. One that is 192 by 192 and another one that's 512 by 512 in pixels. And then finally, we're going to have to create a ICO version of this, which is going to be 64 by 64. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and double click this. And actually, let's make 3 different versions. We're going to Command C, Command V, Command V. For best practices, let's go ahead and name them. I'm going to go ahead and call this one 192. And we'll call this one 512. I'm going to double click this. Now within preview on macOS, all we need to do is come over to Tool, Adjust Size. If you are currently operating in Windows and you know how to do this on Windows, let people know in the comments. I'm going to go to Pixels and I'm going to do 192 by 192. Hit OK. Command Save. Same thing for 512. Tools, Adjust Size, 512. Hit Enter. Command Save. Now that we got all that, let's do one last one. And we are just going to rename this to favicon. Favicon. Now, before we convert it, let's go ahead and adjust the size down to 64 by 64. Yes, this is going to look blurry, but when it's super small, you can't really tell the difference. Command Save. Go to Google and just type in PNG to ICO. I'm going to choose the first option here, and then we're going to select File. With the selected file here, we're just going to hit Convert and Download. Here we go. Let's go ahead and take the files we just created together and push them over here. So I'm going to go ahead and make my VS Code a little bit smaller here. We're going to grab our file, drag it into the public folder. Oh, wrong one. Now I got the right one. So we're going to drag our file, come over here, we're going to hit replace. To make our lives easier so that we don't have to retype in the specifics in the code, we're just going to rename this to all the way down to logo 192. Delete, and then we'll do that for 512 as well. This is just going to make it so that when you drag it over, it will just ask to replace both. And boom. Replace, replace. There we go. We have our favicon now branded, and we have our logo 192 and 512 that's used elsewhere on the internet branded as well. First thing you'll notice is that if you look all the way up to React app, it's our favicon. Good start here. Let's go ahead and update our index.html so it stops saying React app. Is this a React app? I guess technically it is, but don't worry about that. Now, this is the default way of structuring your index.html. I'm going to use a new way. This will be in the Google Doc. I just like the structuring better on this. It's a little bit more clear. I don't like it when there's like random indentations, but here we go. What you'll notice is that now the description is Web Cafe AI, AI-driven web applications. I'll change this in the future. This is how it's going to show up when, on Google, when you search something up, like Apple, and then it has a little description under it. That's what that is. And then the title is just the way that the tab incurs. So if you look up here, it says Web Cafe AI, Web Cafe AI. Now for me, I'm just going to real quickly add what shows up on Google anyways, and based off my previous website. So I'm going to copy this, paste it over here. For now, just copy this first line here and paste it right here. Pretty good, pretty good. With all this, we have successfully created a better SEO-oriented site. Now, I'm going to also show you in future tutorials how to create the social link. So, for example, if someone were to copy your link or custom link, send it in a iMessage, WhatsApp, or Slack channel, it actually shows you like a little preview image, and it just looks good. Therefore, let's go ahead and save this, push this to Git, and then deploy it to our hosting URL. We're going to do git add, git commit, -m, favicon, setup, quotation mark, git push origin, main. Now, what I like to do before I push and deploy to the hosting URL is typically just say Firebase use and then the project name again to reconfirm it. So we're going to do Firebase use Web Cafe landing, and this should give me a confirmation that we are currently going to be using that project. Now using Web Cafe landing, coming back over to a cheat sheet here, and my head is in the way. If you remember to push it to our hosting URL or a live link that's on the internet, we do npm run build, and then we do Firebase deploy. npm run build builds your front end, Firebase deploy builds your back end. All we have initialized right now is hosting, so this is just going to give us the hosting URL. This should be pretty fast. Hit Command V, hit enter. There we go. If I go to the link presented here, like Command C, and boom. Zoom in there right now, zoom in. As you see, this is our live Firebase URL with our new favicon, with our new fave title or SEO title. On top of that, this has the homepage.js that we showed today. This is a live URL. This is good to go, which means in the next lessons to come, you're going to finally see how I code with artificial intelligence to make the process of building out a website extremely fast. That successfully completes lesson 3. We've done security, UI, and done some SEO. And lesson 4, which is today's lesson, is we're going to go ahead and code together using artificial intelligence. I'm going to show you how I code personally, make it super simple, and we're going to create our top fold today. Your first question might be, Corbin, what in the heck is a top fold? That's this right here. It's basically the first amount of UI that showcases when you load into a website. Think of it like the first 25%, or alternatively, this right here. As always, I'm going to leave a Google Doc in the description down below that walks you step by step of everything we do in today's video. I'll also include that ChatGPT chat that is specialized for this video. To be clear though, this ChatGPT chat I'm going to share in this video is going to apply for the next 3 to 4 lessons. I went ahead and calculated out how many more lessons are going to be required for this playlist, and it looks like we're going to have a total of 10 lessons. For the lessons coming out, this is going to go over topics such as setting up a gallery with images, videos within your landing page. On top of that, doing CTAs. One type of call to action we're going to do together is when a user puts in their email, subscribing to a newsletter. But through that lesson, you're going to learn a bunch of other stuff when it comes to more intuitive stuff with your landing page. That's coming up. Let's jump into today's lesson, which is going to be going over how to create a top fold with artificial intelligence. Let's proceed. Congrats to everyone that has made it this far. You've watched lesson 1 to lesson 3. And what I can guarantee from here on out is now you're going to be able to see how to code with GPT. That's why like the first 3 lessons of this playlist is very much like just getting set up. When you actually code a website for real and not like, oh, use this service and pay $20 a month. No, like actually code out a website. There's a little bit of setup and a little bit of structuring we have to do before we really dive in. But from here on out, the lessons are going to be very much oriented to actually building out this landing page. So no, this is not going to be a learn how to code in 10 minutes. Here is your landing page. No, like this entire playlist is probably going to be around 8 hours long. But that's good. Because if you actually want to do this, and actually I want to learn how to do this, you're going to need that much time to understand it. Therefore, if you just found this video, you're like, what is this guy talking about? Check lesson 1 out, because chances are if you just jump to lesson 4 and there's something in here that you're like, this guy didn't explain it well enough, he didn't show us how to do this, it probably was in a previous lesson. Let's jump in. Let's do step 1 together, which is going to be us finding inspiration of a landing page we like. I'm going to show you how to take that design and actually replicate it into code and use it ourselves. Everyone have their ChatGPT chat open in a separate tab, on a separate window, in a separate area. Make sure you watch lesson 2 that showed you how to create custom instructions. That's going to be very important. If you're getting bad answers, that means you didn't do lesson 2. Make your custom instructions as I showed you there. Good so far? Let's find some inspiration. For me, I already found my inspiration. I'm going to show you an image of it. For you, look through the internet, find a website you like, whether it's design-wise or just overall structuring, and do what I'm about to show you. So for example, let's say I go to MailChimp, and for example, that search was like landing page examples. Let's say I land on this landing page, and I'm like, you know what, Corbin? I like this landing page. What I want you to do is very simple. As a Mac user, just hit Command-Shift-4. This is going to allow you to screenshot a section of your page. If you're a Windows user and you know how to screenshot as well on Windows, let people know in the comments down below. I don't know the shorthand for it. For us, though, we're going to simply grab the section that we like. We're building a top fold today. This is the top fold here. We would go ahead and drag over this. Well, let me close this little chat bot. No, MailChimp. I don't want to talk. We're going to go ahead and screenshot this. This image is what we're going to base our top fold design on if we were to choose this as our top fold design. What I'm about to show you workflow-wise and logic-wise, you can apply to anything. Anything, Corbin? Anything. So for example, let's say I'm on this web page and I'm like, whoa, I like this user interface. What you can do is you can simply screenshot this entire thing as well, or alternatively, screenshot elements that you really like. Because what I'm about to show you is going to allow you to replicate everything you would be able to see on a website in code and put it on your own website. Now that we know that all we need to do is screenshot sections of a website or alternatively screenshot entire portions of a website and replicate it in code, let's see how we do it. Now, with the logic I'm about to show you and what's great about actually doing it from the bottom up is that you can just take inspiration from it. It doesn't have to be a complete carbon copy when you code it into your website. And from the example today you're about to see, you'll recognize that I'm not going to follow this to a T, but I like the general direction. For me, what I like about this is having bold letters on the left, like your header, your text, and then an image on the right, and then our logo in the top left. This is good structural direction for me and enough for me to work on for what I'm about to show you today. Take your screenshot and let's proceed. Time to zoom down. Not that far, not that far. And just to show you custom instructions work and it actually listens to it, let's just start off by saying, what is Web Cafe and what are we doing? We should get something along the lines of building out a web page. There you go. The Web Cafe AI landing page is a project you're working on to create an optimized landing page using React as a front end, Firebase as a back end. We set this up in lesson 2. Let's begin. Refresh the chat. Anytime you get into a chat with ChatGPT that is specialized for a specific context, e.g. this chat is specialized for creating a website using the logic we've set up in earlier lessons, understand that if you're getting bad outputs or outputs that you're just like, this is way off base, sometimes you got to refresh the chat. Sometimes you go too far into a chat, you're going to get bad outputs. The flip side can occur as well, where the outputs actually get better and better because it has more context. Attach your image. Upload from computer. Now that we have the image that we want to copy and replicate into our code here, let's go on a prompt. We are building the top fold for our website today. Now, with the image I'm using today, notice a couple of things. First thing I want you to notice is that we have 2 relevant images within, this landing fold that we need to add ourselves. The first one's going to be my logo. So on the top left, I'm going to go and show you how to import a image for a logo. The second one's going to be whatever the main image is on the far right here. And I have an image for that as well. Let me go ahead and import both of those, and I'm going to walk you through why I did my prompt, how I did it. Typically, with website development, you want to use a JPEG format. This is going to allow for less size on the actual website itself. Although, in some context, you can't really use a JPEG. You need it to be PNG. Even if you know what the difference is, JPEG is like there is no transparency. With a PNG, you can create transparency, but it's a little bit more higher in the memory usage category. For now, though, we don't have to mind too much. We're already creating a pretty simple website here. So the first image I'm going to go ahead and upload is going to be this one. Notice how it is transparent. It is a PNG, and this is going to be my main header to the right image. Also, notice how I'm naming it, webcafe-cup-v1. This is important in web development because you may have a new version of this image in the future, just called v2. For now, I'm going to go ahead and drag this into the correct directory that we created in an earlier lesson, which will be in assets and images. I'm going to simply drag. Due to the fact that short term, I don't plan on adding any GIFs, I'm going to go and delete this folder. To find said file, we are in source, assets, images, and here is our image. Next, let's go ahead and add our logo. I'm going to drag it in here as well. You're like, Corbin, didn't we just add the logo in the earlier lesson for the favicon? When we're referencing the logo in our front end, we want to just go ahead and add another file here we can add a directory path for. Source, assets, images, logo 512. Now they have both images within my project here. Let's go and reference them. In order to reference images from file to file, it's going to be another import command. What's great about this is that once you do it once, it's a very simple just copy, paste, copy, paste. So for me, I'm just going to put import. Actually, instead of me typing out, let me show you the power of AI to help you. Let's say you didn't know how to import this file and you're like, I'm kind of lost. Go ahead and screenshot it. Screenshot this exact path. Once you've screenshotted it, simply add it as an image, say, give me the import path, and there we go. This is the relevant import path that we care about. We got the name that we're going to reference within the code and where we can find it. copy code. For now, I'm just going to add it here, even though I'm not going to use it here. Although we've just identified together the exact way to reference image files now. We know it's in assets, we know it's in images, and it's just the image file itself. I'm going to go ahead and copy this again, and we're going to go ahead and say Web Cafe logo. And for the actual file name here, which is this, we'll name it to what we had over here, which is logo 512. Boom. Now, the reason I did both of that right now is for the GPT prompt. So coming back over to my GPT prompt here, notice how I'm also referencing images. So we are building the top fold of our website today. Let's create the code for the file of header.js and header.css. When creating new files with AI, identify the exact file names so you can reference it later on and it's very clear to you. If I didn't identify that there, it would just be like header files.js. Like it just would give me a random name like website blank.js, like identify file names. Furthermore, when you have relevant information that you want to show up, such as an image, identify that as well. So for me, we're going to say use the image as reference copy. Everything in it for the image, use this. That might have sound confusing. When I say use the image, I mean use the attached image. And GPT is smart enough to understand what you mean and understand that this is the attached image. Now, typically what I like to do is, especially for complex work, I usually just like to give it one file to reference for fillers, for images that will be used on a web page. But for now, let's go ahead and take it one step further here. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Web Cafe cup as the just image placeholder. I'm going to say for everything else, use fixed text. And for the top left, here is our logo and brand slogan. Copy the import file here, put it there, and our slogan is automate everything. In the Google Doc, if I don't share this exact prompt, I probably will just share the chat itself so you can reference the type of prompting I do in this logic. For now, though, hit enter. Boom. While this is generating, we're going to go ahead and make that header.js file and that header CSS file. Coming over to our project here, and I'll move over here. In our views section, we're going to go ahead and create a new file here. We're going to do header.js, and then we're going to do header.css. Typically, you have two options when it comes to this kind of logic. You can either create a CSS class per component, e.g. the top fold today, or alternatively create one master CSS class for the entire website. Depends on what you want to do. I'm going to do it per component so it becomes more clear to you how to leverage this kind of CSS logic when dealing with, more complex stuff. So for now, header.js or header.js and header.css. Now, before we can see what the code looks like, we got to launch our emulator so we can do this side by side. Make sure to go to your cheat sheet, which for us, it's going to be a directory. So we're going to start with that, enter. Then we're just going to simply do the command here, which is npm start. What I suggest you to do, especially early on, is if you don't remember what a command does, write a little note by it. It's going to help you remember. And then obviously long term, you can do stuff like this and be good to go. There we go. We have it launched in our emulator, which is localhost 3000. Anything we do here, it's not going to break our current website. It's just going to allow us to play around, get fast results, and get going. Now, sometimes when you compile, you'll get little warnings like this or deprecations. Don't worry. For the most part, these are just warnings. They actually don't break the underlying website. For example, the warnings I see here are saying, hey, you got this image? And you're not using it. And they're referencing these images right here. Well, yeah, I'm not using it, code, because I haven't got to it yet. So a lot of this stuff is not too worrisome. In the meantime, though, let's go ahead and add a little bit of an extension here that's going to make our code look a little bit prettier. I'm going to type in pretty, or P-R-T-T-E-R-I-E-R. Hit install. This kind of stuff will make more sense as you get going more. This just adds a little bit more color to your code, make it more clear. Let's get going here, though. We're back to our code. This is the generation we got here. I want you to recognize that it realizes to import the header.css. It also recognizes the two file paths provided here. It's also customized with the customized instructions to recognize to use React and use the right type of language. Pretty good so far. Let's go ahead and copy this. Come back to our header.js and just simply paste. Command save. Nothing happened. That's just because we need to import it. It's a child component. To do so, we're going to simply make sure we import our header.js into our home.js, and this will make more sense when we do it. First off, let's just go ahead and copy and paste the CSS real quick as well. Copied. Well, actually, before we do that, never mind. I like the CSS naming. I was going to name it more specific, but it already kind of did the header.dash, which is good CSS naming logic. Come back to our CSS, Command V, Command save. Now let's go ahead and make sure we can see it over here instead of just looking at code, which is like, what's going on here? To do so, we're going to simply import the header.js into our header page.js. And we can do this by simply doing this kind of logic. So we're going to import here. I'm going to go ahead and delete this because we're only going to reference it in our header.js file, as you saw right here. We're going to simply just import this file here, which is named header. So we'll do import header. I'm going to simply copy this up here to make my life easier. I'm going to copy paste this, and then it's not header.css, it's header.js. In addition, make sure you have a from command there because this is not a CSS component. This is a JS component. Once we got that, all you need to do in order for us to see it here is we're going to delete all this. Because right now, we're creating this as a parent and child-like structuring. This is going to allow us to, if there's an issue with a certain part of our website, it's easier to identify, and the actual file itself doesn't become like 3,000 lines long, which can get annoying, especially with the methods that we'll show you when it comes to AI and coding. For now, though, let's go to import. So what you'll notice is from previous lessons, we simply just imported the home page here. And that's good. That's all we really need to do for the app.js for now. This is what's actually being rendered right here. But the home page itself is this code. So we need to actually put components within here to render. So for us, we're not going to render the home page in the home page. We're going to render the header. Simply copy the name, paste it here, command save, and there we go. One thing I want you to note here is you might be like, Corbin, how the heck did you know it was named header? That's just because of how we exported it here. Header. Now that got me thinking of soccer. Header, header, header. But once we do that, and what you'll notice is that basically in these lessons to follow, we'll have multiple components like this, each with their separate file here, one being like gallery, CTA, newsletter, footer. For now, though, we just got header. Once we set that up, you'll also notice some information popped here. Pretty nice. Look how much it grabbed, though, based off the information we provided. Here is the original image. This is the original image right here. We get an image right there, text right here, logo right there. Not bad, right? We're already kind of there of where we want to be at. Obviously, the copy's not correct. There's some sizing here, but we're going in the right direction. I also want to point out that we're going to do an entire lesson dedicated towards responsiveness when it comes to different screen sizes. Therefore, we don't get some craziness like that. But that's going to be in a later lesson. For now, though, we're just going to optimize for desktop and do that lesson where the entire lesson is going to be dedicated towards that. Knowing all that, let's go ahead and finish this header here. First thing I want to do is go ahead and clean up my CSS code found in homepage.css. Right now, the only CSS we're using here is purely for structuring, which is to be the cafe homepage. This is what it's wrapped around. They're called wrappers. No, not like 50 Cent. Different kind of wrapper. Come to our homepage CSS, you'll notice is that there is certain CSS classes, if I hit Command F here, that just don't show up here anymore because we're not using them anymore. Therefore, a good practice is that anytime you are not using something within code, just delete it. So we're going to delete all this. And the only purpose that the homepage is going to be for us now is purely for structuring. So what you'll notice is that we set up some logic here in the parent to make it so that text aligned center. I don't like that. I'm going to delete that. I don't want to set up some global clause like that. Typically with a parent class like this, it's purely for the actual layout itself. So for example, we got padding here. When you think of padding like a car cushion, like you ever been like on a futon that's just like not comfortable? You're like, how much did you pay for this? They're like $90 on Amazon. And you're like, that makes sense. Padding is what adds the like how much it goes in or out. So for example, if I went to 20 here, notice how that popped out. If I go to 50, it pops back in. This is the surrounding area of the underlying box. If you're speaking with AI, you just simply say, can we get some more space on the left and the right and the top and the bottom? Same deal. Let's go ahead and start coding with AI here and make this look a lot better. So I'm going to stop this little side-by-side thing. We're going to have one big VS Code. We'll swipe over, see what the website looks like in one big desktop look. Here's our website. Let's start a new chat. Coming over to ChatGPT 4.0, and the reason I'm doing this, in theory, I could continue this chat, but I want to show you how to start a fresh chat on a current page you're working on or a current component. This is going to be very helpful, as sometimes you can get into the conversations, you're like, this is not working out, start a new chat like this. Hey, we are working on a new page on our front end. Here is the code. Semicolon, Shift, Enter, Enter. Go to the first page you're going on. Command A, Command C. Control A, Control C. Paste the first line of code. Let's go to our CSS. Command A, Command C, Command V, and boom. Now this is going to go on a little bit of a rant here. It might tell you better ways to optimize it. Stop it. Just stop it. We don't need you talking, ChatGPT. From here, though, it has your code. So we can start doing stuff with it and not worrying about getting answers that aren't relevant to us. This is huge. Let's look at that web page. What's wrong with this web page? First thing that's wrong with this web page that I can identify is the text is not left aligned. Automate everything. That needs to be a little bit higher. There's stuff wrong with the padding. So here is what we're going to do. I'm going to first off screenshot this. This is what we call double, double, and double. I'm going to upload it. Is this mandatory for every single time you code on the front end? No. Just showing you good practice here. This is where we say this is our current UI. Not to get too advanced here, let's just start simple. For the text, can we have it left aligned? Enter. And here we go. Updated header.jss, copy code. Come over to header.jss, Command A, Command V, paste. Updated.css, copy code. Header.css, paste. Command save. And it's left aligned. What you just saw right there is huge. I could basically stop this series right now and just be like, go. And you kind of got the workflow now of what I'm about to show you throughout this entire playlist. As you get better at doing everything I just showed you there, you will over time learn more and more about what to do in your code manually that's going to lead to the results you want. What do I mean? Basically, when you're just starting out, do exactly what I just showed you, and you will get pretty far. Over time, through this logic and through this workflow, you're going to get little messages like this. Ensure text is left aligned. Text align left. Oh, that's cool. Keep going with your workflow, but now you've identified, wait, so basically text align left is what makes text align to the left. You don't have to learn that right away. But when you keep seeing it over and over again through this workflow, you'll learn more and more how to read your code. Therefore, that's why I'm doing this playlist, as this right here is everything. You'll be able to do everything you want to do like this. And you don't have to understand any of that right now. There's simple stuff you can just understand right off the bat. For example, the VPN that just works. No. Command save. No. You just added that to your arsenal. Now you know you can just simply take the stuff that doesn't look like code and it's fixed text and be like, what? What? This is what I'm talking about. Now that you know the workflow and the process, let's finish our header. To start off here, let's go ahead and change my text because I'm not a VPN company and I don't have an exclusive offer where you can get it for 3 months. For me, it's a holding company, ASS investor, and WebCafe AI. What I'm going to do here is simply screenshot this. Once I've screenshotted it, let's do this. I'm going to upload it. Now that I have it uploaded, no, I don't actually have to type out the text for it to use. ChatGPT can actually read that for me. So that's always one situation. Now, in theory, I could just be like, replace the text with this text, but I'm going to show you how to approach this in a more effective way. My goal here is to remove this text and possibly remove this. In order to communicate with ChatGPT to be as effective as possible, let's actually identify that within the code. So we see the VPN that just works, exclusive offer. So we know that's the text, but how do I really identify it? Now, in theory, I could just copy and paste this over and be like, change this. That works. Although the more effective way to do this, especially so you get better outputs, is see what is wrapping around it. So for this, you'll notice it's the header text. What you'll see is that the div, if I can zoom in, the div highlights another div. That means that they're together. If I went ahead and selected this div, you'll see that all these are together. What does together mean in this context? That just think of it like another compartment in a shelf. All this code is existing in this shelf. Therefore, in order to change everything within the code and little intricacies in it, you can either go to the master shelf or just this little shelf right here. So for me, all I'm gonna do is this. I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna say for this, semicolon, paste the code. Let's change it to the styling of the image. Also, the words that are said in the image. Also, notice how the second word on each line is a different color. Furthermore, please have each line have a CSS class. Right now, it's just H1 default, P default. We don't want that typically. We want an actual CSS class like this associated with the text. Please output the entire new J6 and CSS file. That last line is not typically necessary to get good code, but I'm gonna give it to you right now because some of y'all, especially if it's early days, just do the copy paste method. Copy paste, hit enter. Therefore, in this entire playlist, I'm going to try to reserve myself from just trying to code live. Like, e.g., that's why I kind of went with like showing how to import an image. I actually it was like, wait. Let me just show you how to do it through ChatGPT. That's my plan of this playlist. I want to make this as simple as possible. So if I start coding for a little bit too long, let me know. Let me know if I'm actually typing it out. Like, I might type out some stuff, but I shouldn't be typing out a lot of stuff. And the reason why, and honestly, if you made it this far, here's a little secret. This is a new niche. The content I'm creating right now is a new niche. Never has coding been so easy that if you wanted to start coding and had zero experience, you could do it right now. No niche alert. All right, copy the entire file. Come over here, Command A, Command V, Command Save. Okay, so we each one got a CSS class. Nice. Updated header.css. Copy. Command A, Command V, save. Pretty good, huh? Now, with what we have right here, I'm going to go ahead and make sure just to bold investor with this color. But we have a pretty good start here. Notice how fast that was. I didn't have to know anything about code. I used all layman dictation and got what I wanted. In order to do what I need to do, notice how they're using a highlight CSS here to color it differently. So for me, I'm just going to delete this. And anytime you want to delete code, what you'll notice is that it's always bracketed into something. So for example, if I delete this and I'm like, oh, I don't want this here, there's going to be an error. And you can even see that the error, what's causing the error. I can delete again, and then I can add it here. Alternatively, I could have just asked ChatGPT to do that, but I'm going to have to show you a little bit. I'm going to show you a little bit. Command save, and boom. So far, so good. Let's go ahead and add some more formatting here. One thing I don't like right now, even though this is a big screen, is there's just too much space. I need this shrinked in. I need this centered. I need this compressed. Let's do it. Let me show you another little tip here when it comes to coding like this. If you've added a lot of new additions and it's starting to look better, you don't want bad outputs, sometimes you can do this. Okay, great. Here is what we have so far. And all we're going to do is simply paste in our JS file again and our CSS file again in its entirety. This is going to allow ChatGPT to recognize the new code. And when referencing new code it's outputting, it'll be this code as well. So you won't get some older code kind of getting mixed in there. Hit enter. You can stop its output, because purely the use case of this input was purely to show you the most recent code to play with. Therefore, let's do what I wanted to do earlier, and let's go ahead and center this and structure it. Say, okay, for this section, can we have the width be smaller and align the entire block in the middle of the website? I'm not even going to add that header CSS class, so I can just show you, you're completely just talking to it. You'll still get the end goal. Copy, paste, copy, paste. And that was horrible. Didn't do at all what I wanted, but that's fine. All you need to do is this. Command Z, or undo. And we're back where we're at. Don't worry. When this kind of stuff happens, just Command Z, and let's go and start a fresh chat together to get it actually working. I'm going to go ahead and come back to JS here. I noticed that it left out Sass, so I'm going to put it back in there. And let's do it. I'm going to come up here to new chat and input the same amount of code. We'll be working on this today. CSS, JS, ready to help. This should give me like a one-sentence response here, and we'll proceed. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of things. I'm going to reapproach how I'm going to structure this. I'm going to say, let's go ahead and change this header class to a div class. And on top of that, let's go ahead and shrink the width. Sometimes we've got to start smaller. Okay, for this, let's make it a div and only 80% width. Enter. That's why when you do this kind of style, make sure to push and commit branches or updates to your code to the cloud, like I showed you in earlier lessons. And on top of that, when you run into basically really going down a rabbit hole, like, I'm going to really iron out this component today, have those branches pushed so you can roll back to them, or alternatively just Command Z and undo like one little change you just did. Copy and paste over. With it copy and pasted over, it's shrinked. Looking better. We're getting somewhere. Coming over here. Notice how it will sometimes leave a comment on how it's approaching it, how it did its logic. It added this width line here. So I'm going to go ahead and actually shrink this down to like 60. And then the margin 0 auto is what allows us to center it. And let's actually not go to 60. Let's keep it at 80. Now, there'll be obvious ones that you don't necessarily need to output an entire file for. One example of this is the actual background color. This seems pretty simple here. All you got to do is add FFF. And this is why playing around is good. And there you go. Now it's all white. With our current code here, I'm going to go ahead and just re-input that into ChatGPT because now it needs to recognize that there is a FFF or white background. And then what we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and shrink this in a little bit. Go ahead and add the little brackets that I usually like to have around automate everything. And that should be pretty far in here. This is how we're approaching our next prompt here. Okay, for automate everything, which is this right here, can we just do automate everything, the curly brackets, and just have everything bold, like the actual word, everything bold, and just have the word, everything bold. There we go. Next thing I wanted to work on is the gap between these two. I say, and can we have the gap between, and then provided the CSS code, or the J6 code, which is right here. It's this section and this section. So I just went ahead and copy and paste it over. This is not necessary. I'm just showing you a good rule of thumb. And I say be smaller. And also, can we add a shadow and a CSS class for the image? What you'll notice is that there's not a class name in the line itself. There is no CSS class. You typically want to add CSS classes. This is going to allow for you to do more and crazier and cooler stuff. With all this information, hit enter. And the way I'm going about it is my way. Your way, you could just use all layman dictation. You don't need to reference code and proceed. What you'll notice though is that if you run into errors, just follow that simple logic of Command-Zing and trying again. Copy code, paste code. Notice the new class name. Copy code, paste code. First thing that I'm recognizing is that, okay, the shadow wasn't probably a good idea. So we'll probably remove that. Or alternatively, we can actually play around with that if we wanted to. So it added a new line here called box shadow. We can do something called border radius. If you were talking to ChatGPT, you could ask the same thing here. All you need to do is border radius 50%. And that still doesn't look good. So we're not actually going to add anything here. Delete. Now, what you'll notice is that for the automate everything, it didn't listen. And it didn't work. And that's because, and this is actually very important for you to remember, notice how it says H2 here. Sometimes it defaults to this and it causes issues. And the way it's going about this too is probably not the best way. So we're going to say this. For this line, don't use H2 and use be bold. This is how you do bold in code. It would have known this anyways, but we say don't use H2 and use B for everything. What's great is that if you don't want to just copy and paste one line, it'll do the entire file again. If you want just the line itself, just ask specifically, can I get that line? For me, I'm going to go in and grab this. So that worked. Looks good. Let's add those curly brackets. So let me show you how to do that real quick. We're going to say just for this line, output that line just with outside automate everything. Look at that. I didn't even need to know how to do that kind of logic, and it should work here. Paste. Still not working. I'll give up on it. Or alternatively do this. Screenshot. With this screenshot, we're going to simply attach. This is what it looks like. We need it to be, and I'm just going to type it out. Hit enter. I'm going to let it do its entire output here, but I'm going to go and stop it where we care about it, which will be right here. Paste it. And there we go. Add the curly brackets. Didn't even need to know how to do it. Automate everything. It forgot the period. So let's add the period. And we're good to go. So this video, we did a top fold in the last video, but it's been like a month. So I'm going to create a better top fold, and I have a different vision for this landing page. Let's go to get going here though. Here's our terminal commands. Here's our cheat sheet that we created in earlier lessons here. Why I'm referencing this is let's go ahead and launch our development environment here so we can see the code in the website or in localhost 3000. This basically. So right now I just kind of canceled my terminal. So this happens so I can just show you live. Go ahead and open a terminal window here. If you run into issues with terminal when it comes to NPM commands not working and anything like that, I encourage you to check out my Cursor AI video. It's 30 minutes long. Shows you how to install from complete scratch. You never coded before all the relevant dependencies that are needed in this context. For now, though, all I need to put in is going to be npm start. Well, actually, one last thing. We need to go to the underlying directory. This directory is where all this relevant code right here is found within my computer. Therefore, when I do npm start, we are starting the specific code found here. Npm start. This is going to launch up our nice little landing page here. Boom. Now I'm going to go ahead and rip this up. I'm ripping it up. I don't like it. It's done. Kaput. I'm going to rip this up, and I'm going to go ahead and start coding here, and I'm going to walk you through how I code. I'm going to walk you through the prompts, everything. Let's burn it. Delete. So when I do that, we get a white page here. Let's proceed. To start off here, I'm going to go ahead and just rename some classes, and I'm going to just show you an error I got off just right off the bat. So right now, we're getting this error, right? What I did is I went ahead and changed my header.js and header.css to top fold. If you don't know what a top fold is, this is basically, let me show you real quick. A top fold in this context is what you see initially when you load into a website page. So for Cursor AI, we see this nav bar. We see like this little section right here for download, watch demo 1 minute, and then like a video right here. That's their top fold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to encompass all those elements into one class, and we're going to call it top fold. The first thing you'll notice is that when you rename elements, so I renamed the CSS here, renamed the file here, and the export here, as long as the file's over there. I get an error here. So let me go ahead and explain to you how to read errors like this. First thing you'll notice is that it's going to give you in categorization where this error is found. Source, views, homepage.js. Source, views, homepage.js. Coming over to homepage.js, it then says can't resolve header.js, and then it gives the directory again. So what can it resolve? It can't resolve header.js. What is header.js? Coming up here, you'll notice is that this is what it's referencing, the header. This is what we're importing from Topfold now. Therefore, what it's basically incurring here is that we renamed it from header to Topfold. So I'm going to Command C this, Control C. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste this instead because we're importing top fold instead of header now. Command save, no issue. That's how you should kind of walk through errors. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to drink some coffee, play some Swedish House Mafia on SoundCloud, crazy mix. And my intention is that for this top fold is I'm going to replicate what Cursor AI's top fold looks like. Why? Because I think it looks sexy. This looks cool. I like it. So I'm going to take it. I'm going to show you how to take it. So first, let me go ahead and do the heavy lifting here of coding it all out. And then what I'm going to do with you is we're going to walk through step by step of why I did what I did, how I did what I did, and how you can do the same thing for any type of website. Sound good? I'll see you in like 10 to 30 minutes. Actually, before I do that, let me show you some good practice here. We're going to create a new branch that is dedicated for this new addition to our website. Opening up a terminal window here, let's go to our directory found on our cheat sheet. And the first thing we need to do in order for us to create a new branch, and what branches are is different versions of the code. This will make more sense. Let me just show you, is we need to make sure that little asterisk right there, which indicates that something new has happened, is completely cleared out. Basically, in this context, we want to make sure that the main branch is most up to date. And this has to do with the fact that, we changed it from top fold, from header to top fold. So now it's called topfold.js and CSS. Let's proceed. To do this, and I suggest you add this to your cheat sheet, at least in the beginning, so remember how to do it. We're going to first off, let's just make sure we're in the right branch. We'll say git branch. Okay, we're in main. We're going to do git add, git commit, -m, and then name it to whatever's relevant about this commit. What has changed from the last time you saved? So in this context, we renamed it to topfold.js. We're going to say topfold renaming. And then we'll add a quotation mark here, hit enter. We're going to git push origin, and then we're going to say the branch name. So in this context, it's main. Git push origin main, hit enter. And then what you'll notice is that if I come over to GitHub, I reload this, our most recent push is topfold renaming. So far, so good. Now, let's do some good practice here. And this is very powerful. This is extremely powerful. This is going to basically make it so that this is going to set you apart. This is going to make it so that you can actually structure scalable applications here. We need to make a branch. So we're going to do git checkout -b, creating a new branch. We'll say, for now, I'm going to show you a delete one as well. So let me just do that real quick. So we'll say apples, right? So this is what the branch name is. Okay, so I do git branch again. Now we got, whoopsie, Control C to get out of that. Git branch. So we have apples and we're main, and right now we are in apples. Now, just to show you real quick what that looks like on this end here, it's not going to show yet because we needed to commit something. So for example, let's just say, come up here, I just add some S's here, and then I come back over to here, and you notice how it's an asterisk now, it's different. So we can go ahead and say, same command here. I can hit up on my arrow keys. I'm going to do git add, up on the arrow keys, commit, and then git push origin. But this is not going to be to main. This is going to be to apples. Hit that, and then what you'll notice is that this is going to create a PR request, which we'll get into, and we'll explain what even is a PR request. For now, though, I'm going to delete this. So let me show you how to delete a branch. Let's say we're like, oh, we messed up big time. This is no good. We shouldn't be here right now. I just completely messed up. We can do git branch, git checkout. Checkout's how you move between branches. Git checkout main. So now that I'm in git checkout main, this isn't going to have those S's. Look at no S's here, right? This is going to be, like the stable branch. This is where we want to keep stable here. What we can do here is be like, I messed up big time with those apples. How about them apples? I can do git branch -d, capital D, and then the branch name. Hit that, and this no longer exists locally on your machine. So hit git branch again, only main. So earlier that deleted it locally, but we already pushed it to the cloud. So in order to get out of this situation, we can simply, let me went a little fast there. We can simply come over to branches here, click it, and then what you'll notice is that right here next to my face, there's a little garbage, delete, and we're good to go. Command R, reload, Control R, and there we go. That's how you successfully create a new branch, delete a new branch, and commit a new branch. If you're still not clear on what branches are, check out those earlier tutorials where I gave you ChatGPT chats to help you out on that specific terminology. Also, the more you do, the more you learn. With all that though, let's create a new branch here. And the purpose of this branch is going to be for today's video, which is going to be git branch -b. Write this in your cheat sheet, and we're going to say top fold new. Messed up there. Git checkout B. Try again. Git checkout B. Then we'll do top fold new. Hit enter, and we are in our new branch. Okay, we're going to do everything we need to do in top fold new. In addition, by the end of this video, you'll understand how to handle a pull request. You'll understand the implications of pull requests, and you'll even understand how to merge a pull request into our main branch, which in the context of development, that's going to be your stable branch. This is the branch that you don't want to touch. Anytime you want to make a change to your code, you rarely ever want to actually code within the main branch. Got it? Let me code it out. This is how far I've gotten so far. Let me show you how I use artificial intelligence to help me start mimicking what we saw with Cursor AI in our own code. Just for context, this is a good amount of chat. As you'll see in this little sidebar here, there's a lot of chat going back and forth with ChatGPT to get exactly what you want when it comes to coding. So my plan is I'm going to go and give you some pointers of ways to talk to ChatGPT in this context so you don't get lost, you restart, proceed. To start off here, make sure you have custom instructions enabled. We did this in lesson 2. You can check it out, how to make custom instructions specific to your version of the software or website you're creating. Make sure to have that enabled. Once you have that enabled, this is how you typically start chats. I like to start with one sentence, very simple, give context. Okay, we are creating the top fold of our website, ready to see what we want. Next, what I'll do is I'll feed the relevant code I have so far up to the point of that development. So in this context, I'm going to provide the JS and CSS files. So this is going to be the CSS file here, the JS file there. At this point in the chat, it was very small, obviously, right? So we just had like a very small JS file, and then we had basically nothing for the CSS. And then notice how I end this. I provide the code, and I say ready to see what we want it to look like exactly. There's going to be instances in this chat where I repeatedly ask it to either say, just say yes, or just do this. Like you have to kind of guide ChatGPT so it doesn't go on rants. Because one thing with AI and coding is sometimes it can go on rants. So these are ways to circumnavigate that. When I say rants, I'm talking about like you're giving out code I didn't ask for. So now that it knows the structuring, it knows my code, it'll then ask basically, okay, yeah, cool. What do you want it to look like? So in this context, I literally screenshotted Cursor AI's landing page. Screenshot. That's it. And I say, give me all the code for everything, JS and CSS. Now, what will happen in this context is that it will give you code, but it's not going to be perfect, obviously. It's going to like get you in the right direction. But from what you see here, we got the relevant J6 code and we got the relevant CSS code. First major issue of this code, and this is something that you may not be able to notice or recognize if you're pretty new to coding, is notice how it's giving very general CSS. This is no good because of the fact of how we're treating this element within our code. This kind of code, like very general code, how do I know if it's general, Corbin? If it has like body or asterisks, it isn't like a class name like dot top fold container, that's how you know it's general. You want to delete this code. That kind of code is the kind of code we give with the parent component. Now, the parent component in this context, or what we call the parent component, is the one that's going to be the overarching global, like how does this look visually? So what you'll notice is that I'm importing the code for the top fold here, which is this code right here. I'm importing this in our homepage.js just as a component. This is the child. This child is then going to be manipulated by the CSS of the overarching div found in this element. Now that is where we're going to put our major type of structuring in the underlying web page. So if I come over to the CSS here, this is like big structuring. Notice how it's like max width 12,000 or 1,200. In this context, if I put like max width 100, it's going to affect every single imported child in this component. Max width 100 px would lead to something like this. It affects everything. Let's go back to 1200. I'm opting for 1,200 rather than like percents, like 50% of the component size, because of the fact that that is what Cursor AI is doing in the way they're structuring their code. What you'll notice is that there's a lot of empty space between the left and right, and this has to do with the fact of just mobile optimization and responsiveness on the screen, which we'll get into in later tutorials here. But for now, so far so good. With this, what you want to do is simply copy and paste the relevant CSS code and the relevant J6 code over to its relevant files. Once you do that, you'll obviously visually see it within your development environment and start getting an idea of what direction or how to proctor ChatGPT from that point. And as good measure here, so that in future outputs, at least within this chat, I don't repeatedly get a general CSS like we saw with body and the asterisks. I simply will put don't need, paste that code. We'll apply this elsewhere when we're ready for what's next. Now, let me show you an example of if you mess up with a code input. Now, typically what you can do is come back here to the pencil, select that, and then readjust the way you're phrasing it to get a better output. And you'll know if it's a bad output if you paste the code over and you're just like, whoa, what just happened? And typically you just scroll back up and copy and paste over, the better looking code. But let's say you import another image here and you get a bad output. These type of inputs on ChatGPT, you can't actually adjust again or change again. Therefore, let me show you how to get around this. My objective with this one was to simply add a round rectangle, make the corners round, add some separation, essentially make it look more like this situation. So what I did here was I was providing blocks of code and asking for specific elements to output. But what happened was the code was just no good. It was no good. This code was horrible. And I couldn't go back to readjust the prompt. So what I did was this. I simply did this. This is a great way. So either you can start a new chat, but that can take a little time, or alternatively, just do what I do. Okay, take a step back. I paste over the code I like, the JS again, the CSS again. So whatever the code you really like, paste it again. So it can just take a step back and not go down a rabbit hole of bad code. And then I end with the sentence, ready to see what I want. What this does for us is this resets ChatGPT to be like, oh, okay. Whatever I just outputted previously was no good. I'm going to refer back to the code that was just provided here. Understanding that, the process here is, as you saw in lesson 4, is very much copy and paste over, maybe make little changes here and there once you understand more of how to work a CSS element. But for now, early stages is very much copy and paste over. A little bit of talking, paste it. Does it look good? Doesn't look good? Readjust. So then coming down here, what you'll notice is that you can actually get pretty intuitive with your images here. So one issue I was having is the ability to separate between the header section and the navbar section, e.g. what's occurring here. Notice with the image I provide, which you can basically use any type of image editor, whether Windows or Mac, and just draw a line. Notice how I draw that little red line here to identify the exact issue I was having. It's smart, y'all. It can actually see that and it can actually understand what you're saying. And basically what I asked for here is I need a gap between the navbar and the hero section. Why did I call it the navbar and hero section? That's because the way that it outputted the code, it understands that this section right here is the navbar. This is like a comment. And then coming down here, it understands that this is the hero section, especially with all the CSS elements called it as well. So when conversating with ChatGPT, make sure to reference these specific ways it's already calling it within the code. It's going to make it so that it understands exactly what you're talking about. And you can take it one step further here and actually draw on images to get the output you're looking for, which leaves us to where we are right here. Not bad so far, right? This is actually pretty good considering this only took me around 20 minutes to do, and we are getting going here. So my plan, obviously, is I'm not going to keep the same copy. I'm going to start changing the copy here to reflect more of what Web Cafe is and my website. On top of that, there is going to be some element features here that I switch up with the buttons. I'm going to show you real quickly how to embed a YouTube video, or actually alternatively, I'll show you how to embed a YouTube video. But in reality, I could have this so we could store it in our database, but I'll do a YouTube video, as sometimes that's just good for exposure and getting more views on your underlying video if you have a video element within your website. On top of that, I plan on changing this navbar a little bit, but you can see the potential here. We're getting pretty far here. And before I dive into that and start jumping into that, one last thing I want to leave you with is understanding how to conversate in the context of a child-parent relationship. So if we come back to our homepage.js here, we obviously know this is the child here, and then like the ultimate parent, the grandparent, it's going to be the app.js. This is how it's rendered. So we actually have the homepage being imported here. But the actual situation here with the homepage.js is, this is all the elements that we found within our homepage. What you want to do here is what I did here. This element is imported here. So I reference that this entire element we've been working on, this top fold, is imported into this class here. And then I give the CSS for the underlying homepage, right? So that's the cafe homepage, as we know right here. Now, if you're having a situation here where you're like, this doesn't look good, it's left aligned, what's going on? Notice how I just simply ask how to make width smaller and center all the elements. And it provided me the correct code here. Now, to be fair, it provided me 50% here, which what this does is that depending on whether you're on an iPhone, tablet, computer, it will be 50% of the screen. This is good, some context, but when you're dealing with like global CS classes, like I call them here, you want to do much more of a hard fix. So I'm going to do 1200px as our max width in this context. This will change when we do our responsiveness lesson later in this series. Let me go ahead and change the copy here, some structuring, give you some more insight. Went ahead and updated the copy here. So right off the bat, this is more tailored to what Web Cafe AI is. Went ahead and did our slogan here, automate everything. Then we got our nice little disclaimer of getting more context of what Web Cafe AI does up to this point. Furthermore, what you'll notice is that we've actually taken that button, made it into one button here, and we're using a nice little play icon here. Let me show you where I get that. Go ahead and type in Google, font awesome. What Font Awesome is going to allow us to do is use icons within our website or software that just look good. So for example, I typed in play here, and what you want to do is select free. With free selected, you can use any of these in your software or website for free. Simply click one and proceed. Everything is looking pretty good. The way I'm going to go ahead and proceed from here is that when I click this is going to create a pop-up YouTube video. I'm going to link it. I'm going to show you how to link it. And on top of that, when I click these two, these are going to be two separate external links. What's going to be very specific about those external links is that it's going to open a new tab within our browser. Content catalog is going to bring them to the YouTube channel. Take this website is going to take them to the very specific playlist that you're watching right now that I'm currently building out this website with. Let's walk through some more ChatGPT chats so you can learn some more skills when talking to AI in the context of coding. One of the major things that you might have noticed that has gone from the nav bar now was the little sections to click to different parts of the website. The reason I personally got rid of it is because the fact that this is a landing page. So I'm only going to have one page here. I don't need multiple sections. In theory, I could have kept it there, and if you click it, it brings you to that certain part of the page. But my intentions with this landing page is to make it as small as possible, but it has the most value as possible. So from here, I simply asked ChatGPT to get rid of it. Now, in theory, I could just remove it myself in the code, but if you're not very comfortable with the div yet, what you can do is simply copy over the code that you think is relevant to the code you want to get rid of, and then just ask for it to remove it. Okay, actually just remove the code entirely, and then it'll give you the updated code here. Here's a quick tip when it comes to structuring. If you come over to an element, and you don't necessarily know where it stops or ends or closes, you can simply highlight it like this, and you'll see it will close here. Or alternatively, select this, and you'll see it closes here. This is important as any div element within a div is going to be affected by its outer bracket. So everything within hero section, such as hero title, hero subtitle, if I put hero section is width 50%, everything within here is going to be 50% width. That's the idea. And then, of course, you're going to have your overall div here. So if I select this one right here, come all the way to the top, the overall one is going to be the top fold container. That is why within CSS, the top fold container is going to have very general type of CSS directions, such as display flex, flex direction column, everything above the board there. In addition to helping with coding, it can also help you with copy or how you want to phrase things within your web page. So for example, here, I originally had holding company, AI SaaS investor, webcafe AI. I didn't really like how it flowed. So I gave the cursor subtitle as an example, but then gave more context of what I want to show in this underlying subtitle. And based off this, it gave me a very long sentence, which I didn't like either. So I simply just said, make it shorter and make it sound more like what we saw with cursor. Shorter and sound more like, and then the cursor example. If you don't know what I'm referencing this subtitle. Then it gave me a subtitle I could work with. And from there, was able to put it out. So let's go ahead and wrap up our top fold here. I'm going to show you three major things. First major thing is that how to do external links correctly. Second thing is how to embed videos based off a click. So it's a little pop-up. And then finally, all this working in motion. Sound good? Let's do it. Welcome back. We went ahead and added everything we needed to add. So now, when you use this website, a couple things. On hover, we have a nice little hover effect. We'll make the buttons slightly larger. Add a little opacity as well. So notice how it gets a little bit more bold in your face when you hover over. Did that. When a user clicks on it, it's going to open a new tab. So for example, a content catalog will be the YouTube channel. And the take this website will be the entire playlist that you're currently watching. In addition to this, we went ahead and added this little section here. So the user will see a nice little like highlight. And then when they click it, will automatically play a video that I grabbed from YouTube. This in theory could have been a video that I stored in my Firestore or alternatively the storage within Firebase. But for now, I'm just going to use the YouTube video as this is pretty simple to implement. And then what you'll notice is that obviously the user could watch this, or alternatively, if they want to leave it, they can simply click anywhere outside of the video and it goes away. Let's go and break that down with ChatGPT, but also how it looks in the code. So first, let's go over the new tabs being open. First off, I started a new chat for these next two editions here. When you start going a little bit further into a chat, it sometimes can give bad outputs. So I typically like starting a new chat. To do so, I simply put in, okay, we're working on the top fold of the website today. I provided the entire JS file and the entire CSS file. Just paste and paste. Once I did that, ChatGPT just started spewing random stuff. I typically just stop ChatGPT in its tracks by clicking this on an output just because like, I'm not trying to do that right now. Let's do something else. To add the hover effects, it's really easy. So all you have to do is simply do, okay, first let's add some hover effects. You'll provide the relevant buttons. So for me, it was these two buttons right here. Notice how I simply just pasted the buttons over. And then I provided the relevant CSS. So as you know, or maybe not know, define whatever the button CSS is correlated with. You can simply come over to your button here and notice how it says content catalog button, Command F, Control F. Go to your CSS here, and that's it. That's the CSS correlation right there. With this, though, I simply asked for a hover effect, and it went ahead and gave it to me. I did some slight changes here. So what the hover effect is, though, in this context, is simply adding the original CSS class name and adding hover. So coming over here, you'll notice that we have the original CSS class name, and then what do you want it to do on hover? So for me, I wanted to get the opacity slightly higher. So, it's slightly phased out to completely in your face. And then the scale, that's what causes like the slight enlargement, is 1.02. Just to give you an idea of what this can do, if I did 2, it's gonna be twice the scale. Or boom, we don't want that. So I'm gonna keep this at 1.02, but you successfully learned how to do a hover element within CSS and how to talk to ChatGPT in that context. Now, the next piece of logic that we added, which is major, is the ability to open a new link in a tab. So notice how it references this specific function here, which is window open, blank, no opener, no referer. This is gonna be the logic we use when we open new tabs in the browser. It references it and it uses it twice for these specific links. The reason we're doing it like once here and then twice here is so we don't have to repeat this logic and this code twice here, right? So we can just reference the actual function itself for either one of these URLs. In order to get that within ChatGPT, it's pretty simple. What I typically like doing is that go ahead and paste your entire file that's relevant. So for this context, it was the top fold. When I say paste the entire file, you could quite literally paste the entire thing, or alternatively, come over to this little gold bracket right here and just slide all the way up here and copy up to the top const. Paste that over as you're about to do a big logic change. With this new logic change, I put it simple. I said, for this specific button, take me to this specific link in a new tab. For this specific button, take me to this specific link in a new tab. Notice how it's very much like just be as specific as possible with your actions. And with this, it gave me the relevant code that I cared about. And on top of that, the relevant code that's going to allow it to open on a new tab. This is a very simple copy paste over. One thing to keep in mind with these copy and pasting over is that notice your imports. Sometimes with ChatGPT outputs, it won't give you all these imports. Therefore, when you paste over, you're going to get a ton of errors. You're like, Corbin, you messed them up. What happened? That's just because it went ahead and you overcopied on your import. Make sure you always have your imports at the top. There you go. So we've successfully learned how to open up a new link with a new tab, and we're good to go. Make sure you leave a like if you found value so far. Now let's go to learn a more complex element of this page, which is the ability to click a button, have a popover effect, and on top of that, play a YouTube video automatically. Hello, this is Popups. The best way to... Therefore, let me show you the exact dictation I used when talking to ChatGPT. So coming down here, if I go to the button that I care about, which was this button is the active investment button. This is the one that shows a little play icon. This is this button. What I did was I simply obviously hovered over it, found out where the button closes, which you'll see is right here, copied this over, Command C, and then pasted it right here. And I say, when I click, provide the button code, can we have a pop-up open and play this video? And then provided the video link. That's it. And this starts taking you in the right direction. So the first thing it wanted me to do was create a module component. The way I want you to think of this is that within your actual website, you're gonna have a new folder here. It's gonna be called components. Think of components as like little parts of your website. Now, not necessarily like a whole section like a footer, but more of like you gone to a website and sometimes you get that little pop-up saying, do you accept the cookies? Do you? That little pop-up of cookies could be a cookies component, right? We have a whole JS and CSS file dedicated towards the cookies pop-up. This context is for the video pop-up. We have a whole component that will import from here to here so we can do some logic in showing it or not showing it. If that sounded confusing, don't worry, because when I asked ChatGPT to do it for me, it gave me that answer. So first off, it gave me the video module component, or the JS. And if you're ever wondering of whether or not this is going to be the original file that you just pasted over or a new file, it's just whatever is the const and then the name right there. So as you'll notice, it says video module here. It does not say const top fold. That tells me this is a whole new JS file. With this though, I simply went over here, right-clicked on source, I hit new folder, created a folder called components, as we'll create more components later on, and then basically put the two files here, the JS and the CSS. This was the JS file, and if you want to know what a JS file looks like, typically it has the imports, it has the return, has the export default. And then it gave me the CSS. So I went ahead and created both files, pasted both of this code over, And then finally, what's really cool, because it has context, it's able to give me the final top fold file as well. So notice it gave me the entire top fold file on top of that. And it went ahead and found it right here. And I pasted that over. Now, with this kind of logic, the first error you're going to run into is that it's not going to know where to import video module from. So you're going to get an error saying like it can't find it. Don't worry. This is how you solve for that. First off, this is like a hierarchy in the sense of where the actual file is found. So notice how video module, which is video module JS right here, is found within the components folder. Therefore, one before that should be called components. The other very important thing that you need to add here, as it won't be relevant if you don't do this, is that notice with topfold.css, it's one period. That's because of the fact that they are both found within the same folder. They're just nestled together. Alternatively, this is found within a different folder that we're referencing, the components folder. Therefore, we need to add this second period there in order to identify that this is coming from somewhere else in our directory. Just to show you, if I do this, I'm going to get an error here like, where is it found? What's going on? Therefore, just know when you're importing from separate folders that aren't in the original folder, so this folder we're calling views, add that second period there, and then when I hit save, we're good to go. Now that we understand that, we can actually reference video module. So coming down here, you'll notice it right there. So this has a little bit of Boolean logic that you have to worry about, but for now, up to this point, if you copy paste over, and then import it correctly, you'll be good to go and everything will work. So within the JS itself, though, if you have issues with the specific way that the module looks, then you just edit it here or the pop-up. So for example, when I originally created this logic, the video wouldn't automatically play. It would just have a play button, like it would just show. And I simply just said, okay, cool. Can we actually have the video automatically play? And it was able to give me the exact code I needed. Went in and copied that and pasted it over here, and it worked. Keep scrolling down. Okay, cool. Can we remove the close button, and can we only have it closed when you click outside the pop-up? Proceeded to give me the code. So that's the flow. That's the process. Paste over. Oh, something messed up badly. Okay, revert back to the original code. Like, keep going in this logic. Because up to this point, I've successfully created a top fold that I am satisfied with. We got 3 buttons that work. We got whatever my active investment is going to be a video that plays right there. Therefore, let's go to push this commit. Let's make a PR request and understand the logic that's entailed with that. So coming back to terminal, we'll say git branch. Always make sure you're in your directory. That's whatever you called your project. From here, I'm going to say git add, git commit, solid top fold. We're going to do git push origin, and then whatever our branch name is. So if you don't know what it is, I always suggest you do git branch so you can kind of see it here. You can copy it right here. Also, you'll notice it's right here when you do certain commits. So I'm going to do this. Enter. Boom. Cleared up. Good to go. Come in over to our GitHub here. We push this branch to the cloud. So I'm going to do compare and pull request. You can add another title here for reference. So I'll just say completed top fold for future reference. I can say create pull request. So now we have an active pull request occurring here. This is basically like, hey, I want to merge this to the main. Does everything look good? And for you to confirm if everything looks good here, you can go to files changed. Within files changed here, you can just basically see what the heck happened. So as you'll notice here, if I come down here, we added a PNG of these 2 different files here. We added a new component folder. That's why there's a little plus sign here and all this code. If I go to top fold, I noticed that like, oh, so we added all this code right here. Okay, so we removed header, but now we're naming it top. Like, this is like your way to going through to make sure nothing changed that you aren't expecting. Once you're satisfied, though, I can come back into this PR request here, and I hit merge pull request. Then I simply say confirm merge. So now that we've successfully merged this to main, I can go and delete this branch. I don't need it anymore. Delete branch. Coming back over to main, notice how the most recent commit was from that merge. So what this means is that we still currently have top fold new branch locally in our machine. So if I hit git branch, we're still here. So in theory, I could keep it here. I have some like old branches of some of the software I've developed that I just keep in my local and I don't have in the cloud. Up to your preference. Alternatively, what I suggest you to do is do git checkout main. Let's go back to the main branch here. Let's go to the stable one. Once we're here, do git pull origin main. Put this in your cheat sheet. This is going to find the most recent up-to-date code that we have in the cloud. And it has updated, right? Because we merged the previous branch. All that code we just changed there, we merged with main. Doing this command here, you'll notice some plus and some minus. There we go. We have the most recent main branch now. Now notice within main, the existence of video modules here, the existence of the renaming of top folders here. All this relevant code is here in main now. Pretty good. So now that our main is good and is ready for our next video or our next lesson here, we can get rid of top fold new in local if we choose to do so. I'm going to do that. Git branch D, capital D, Copy the name, and it's deleted. We're good. Back to main. I'll create a new branch for the next lesson. That completes lesson 5 here. Make sure to leave a like if you found value in today's video. It's completely free. Welcome back, y'all. This is lesson 6 of the series I've been doing for the past couple months here, showing you how to build out an entire website and actually build out a website using artificial intelligence and coding it out. Now that we got that out of the way, and everyone that's watching has watched the previous 5 lessons, so don't leave that comment saying I didn't teach you. Just watch the other lessons. Let's check out lesson 6 here, where I'm going to build out a banner, and I'm going to show you how to build out a component that's going to be image-oriented, e.g. a gallery. If you don't know what a banner is, that's going to be this little green thing right here. This is typically used in the context of giving announcements. You could also link articles with this or just link anything with it. So in this video, I plan on creating a banner here. And then the gallery part is going to take the section that's currently live on my website, and I'm going to make it into a better looking section of all the investments that Web Cafe AI is involved in. Sound good? 2 last things I'll mention real quick, fire off. If you're using either Cursor AI or Replit, what you're about to see in today's video can still be applied in this context. You're going to learn how to prompt correctly in the context of coding and using artificial intelligence. Number 2, this entire series is very lengthy, and the last episode is going to encompass 3 major parts that aren't going to be included on YouTube. It's going to be included on my school community. The 3 major things are going to be a newsletter type of CTA. You're going to learn how to deal with webhooks. The second major thing is going to be a contact page. And then the third major thing is going to be the ability to create custom domains within this website. Regardless, if you don't want to look at my school community, you're like, I don't care, Corbin. That's fine. You'll get 80 to 90% of what you need to know about creating websites from my YouTube playlist here. Sound good? Let's jump in. Coming over to my project here. Let's start here. I'm going to open up a terminal window. With this terminal window here, let's go into our directory. We're going to come over to our cheat sheet here. Corbin, I don't have a cheat sheet. What's a cheat sheet? You skip some lessons, all right? I think we did this in like lesson 2. This is our directory. Now that we're in a directory, you already know. What do? npm start. This is going to launch our code found here into a development environment. Enter. We are live. Localhost 3000 is launched here. This is where we got on our previous lesson here, where we created our top fold. Our top fold gave us the ability to get external links. For example, content catalog brings you to the YouTube channel you're currently watching. Whoever this guy is, he seems chill. The take this website, which I may change this CTA a little bit later on, depending on the dictation. For now, though, takes you to the current playlist you're watching, as basically I'm showing you how to build out this website from start to finish in this playlist. And lastly, what we completed in the previous lesson was our ability to create a nice little UI element where we can see the active investment, or in this context, basically play a video from YouTube in a cool way. Click this and we get going. Hello. Now let's move to the next part here, where I'm going to create a banner at the very top here. And then on top of that, I'm going to create another section here, which is going to be based off the current investments Web Cafe AI is involved in. Let's get going here. So we're going to have GitHub opened. We're going to have ChatGPT open. We're going to have everything open, ready to go here. We're going to create a new branch for the purpose of today's video. This branch is going to be banner and investment section. If you remember the previous video, you already got this in your cheat sheet. Is it in your cheat sheet? Have you added it yet? We're going to do git branch. This is going to tell us that we are currently in main. And as a side note, when I ran npm start, I leave that terminal window open just in the side, right? So we create a new terminal window when we want to do like different types of commands outside of just running the localhost 3000. So we're currently in main branch, and from what you know from previous lessons, we don't want to touch main branch. If you want to make changes, don't touch it. This is your stable branch. Therefore, we're going to create a new branch, and the purpose of this branch is going to be the banner, and we'll say invest. Banner invest. Enter. I messed up again. It's not git branch. I keep doing this command. It's git checkout -b. Now we'll do it again. Banner invest. Enter. There we go. We created a new branch. And there we go. So we're good to go. So here we shall proceed. I'm going to go ahead and get some coffee in me. I'm going to listen to a Swedish House Mafia mix. Which one, Corbin? Just type in Swedish House Mafia on SoundCloud and add mix. A lot of good ones. I'm going to go ahead and code out some files, show you the end product when it came to the banner, and then show you step by step how I achieved it so you can do the same thing. Sound good? I'll see you in like 20 minutes. This is what we got so far. I know it doesn't look beautiful, but I'm going to show you how I got to this point, as all that's really left right now for me to do is add a bunch of CSS elements to make this actually look good. Let me show you the structuring and how I've gotten to this endpoint. Obviously, my next step is to make that user interface look way better. But for now, let's go ahead and find out how I got to this point. Here is a new way you can start a chat to give a little bit more context to ChatGPT for the structuring of your underlying repository and how you want to associate the files. Notice how I screenshotted this, which can be found right here. And the reason I screenshotted it is because of the fact that the component we're creating is the banner, which is going to be found in the components folder. But we're going to go ahead and make sure we import it into our topfold.js. In short, so it basically renders above the top fold here, as you can see. So when I provide the folder structuring here, notice what I say. We are creating a banner for the top of our landing page. Current structuring of our project let's create a new components folder, call it banner.js, banner.css. So I give the specific file names I want to create. Then I go one step further here and tell it where to import it, which is going to be the topful.js. Now, with the response it gave me, it definitely gave me too much. Like, for example, we don't need to do this in terminal. What we can do in theory from here, and what I did was I simply just went over here, I right-clicked in components and just created both files myself. Created the .js, .css. Once I created those files, made my life simple, as I just want structuring right now, I simply copy the .js, pasted it over there. When I say copy, I mean like copy like that. Simply copy the CSS, pasted it over there. What do you mean by paste it over there, Corbin? I mean, I literally went to .js, banner.js, paste. Banner.css, paste. That's it. I want to render it. I want to see where we're even at. Then it went ahead and showed me where to import it into topful.js, but it was actually incorrect. I'll explain why when it comes to pathing. But it did show it correctly in the sense of how to render it in the J6 element, like this. So for example, if you went the extra mile here, and you went to topful.js and you imported the same way, like it showed, we are obviously going to throw an error here, right? Because it's not going to be able to find it. The reason it's not going to be able to find it is because right now banner exists in the components folder. We went over this in lesson 5, and from lesson 5, you can see here, right here, video module components. I'm going to command Z this, so it shows it in the correct folder here. Banner, components, 2 dots, because we're going inside of a folder here. Not 1 dot, 2 dot. If that didn't make that much sense, watch the previous lesson. I go very much in depth of how to spot these kind of errors and know how to reference files correctly when importing. Now that we've imported banner from this section, banner, where's this name coming from, Corbin? Banner.js, export default banner. We can go ahead and leverage this and scroll down here, and all the relevant code found here, we can display with just this one line. This is why it's really nice doing parent-child relationships like this, where this banner is seen as the child component here that we can literally just do with one line. What do you mean, Corbin? I comment this out, comment out. When it does that, basically, like, it's not reading the code. What happens to the preview? There is no banner. Now that we have that, though, we have successfully created a banner, or at least the formatting or the structuring of the banner. I got to obviously do CSS here because that does not look good. There was a couple other things that was wrong with the code output. Second thing is that it did not do a return for the underlying J6 here. So always make sure you have a return for the J6. That's important. What do you mean? Scroll back up here, go up the banner. Notice how there is no return statement. Let me show you a little bit more structuring here. Notice how everything when it comes to logic is done outside of the return statement. All logic, when I say logic, we're thinking of stuff that incurs outside of just the rendering of the actual app. An example of logic is that when I reference open link in new tab, this logic will take a link and open it in a new tab. I know it's in the name. And then you can reference this kind of logic here. Make sense? Let me go ahead and up the CSS, make this UI look good, and give you my next steps. I'll see you there. How does it look? Some of y'all right now are like, Corbin, how do we even get to this point? Don't worry, I'm going to show you step by step how I got to this point. Let me explain what I changed, though. First thing is I went ahead and changed the color palette here, obviously. So less color, more of this like sleek look. I really like it. Furthermore, I went ahead and rounded the corners a lot more here and added a shadow effect so it looks like little like blocks, which are really cool. In addition, I went ahead and upgraded the little active investment button so it does a nice little animation now when you hover over it. Following this, the banner currently works perfectly. We have our announcement here. We are excited to share that WebCafe AI's investment Popups has secured funding from Google. And what's cool is that when you click our little banner here, it would actually take you directly to bumpups.com. Let me go to show you step by step how I got to this point here, how to create a nice little banner here, and even go as far as creating an external link associated with that banner. Sound good? Let's jump it. Let's walk this through step by step here. First, let's identify what I did with the banner. First thing you'll notice is that right now, the banner has 2 CSS classes comparative to what you just saw it. We have the overarching banner CSS class, but now we actually have a CSS class associated with the text. Before, this text was wrapped in an H1. Now, this isn't bad, but personally, what I like to do is typically wrap my text in divs. And this allows me to really adjust the underlying CSS that's associated with that text. So what you'll notice here is I simply put in this prompt. I said, okay for this, and I literally just pasted the entire file. Let's give a CSS class 2, and then I provided the H1 and make it a div. That's it. What I found through development is that sometimes if you leave H1 on there and still try to mess with it in CSS elements, it doesn't necessarily follow it to a T. There's additional issues. And typically your H1 element is supposed to be the most relevant thing about your web page for Google to search and crawl. Due to the fact that this part of the web page is an announcement, That's not the most relevant part for Google to crawl. And when I say crawl, that is me saying basically when Google looks at your website and shows it for search results. All right, so scrolling down here, gave me what I wanted, announcement as a CSS class, copy, paste, got the relevant CSS as well, copy, paste. So then once I did that, I went ahead and provided a current image of what the website looked like. And I realized, you know what? This coloring isn't it. It's just not working. It doesn't look good. So for that, I said for the banner, what coloring would work better for the background? No, this was me kind of messing around, wondering like, okay, what direction do I want to go here? It gave me some suggestions. I didn't like any of them. So I kind of took a step back and realized, you know what? Let's find out what we actually want to do here. And as a side note, I went ahead and also thought the actual thing that was being said in the banner was too long. So, this is good. Can we make it slightly shorter? Give me a slightly shorter version of the banner message. I like doing little stuff like that as it will just remove superfluous words and just give me the words that are relevant to what I'm trying to say or communicate within the copy. So moving forward here in the website, I think the one thing I liked about my old website was how sleek it looked. It just looked sleek. It was minimalistic. The coloring wasn't crazy. So in that context, I was like, you know what? Let's try to replicate something similar here. Therefore, number 2 thing to learn here is that you can reference other sites or other branding when creating your own website. Now, this specific context of what I did here was Apple. I was like, I want a modern look. Let's make it look like Apple. So I provided the current linear gradient, which was this, and asked for Apple looking type of gradient. It provided one. It wasn't perfect, but then that kind of got my brain thinking, you know what? I'm going to just get it myself. I'm going to do it myself. So I went ahead and grabbed the colors from Apple and then made the gradient myself. So that got me to this point here where I had the colors from Apple. And your next question might be, Corbin, how did you get the colors from Apple? I'm not sure what it would be on Windows. So if you know, go ahead and leave in the comments down below. But on Apple, you can go ahead and just install an app called Color Picker. And basically what it allows me to do is simply go to any website, select a specific color I want to get the color of or the hex of. For example, I could come over here and be like, what's the color of this text? Click it. And now I got the color. You can do the same thing with Windows or Linux, whatever it may be. That's how you can grab color from relevant websites that you like the coloring of. I then basically gave you another screenshot basically saying, obviously we can't read this white text anymore. So what is a better matching color? Gave me some color examples here. Proceeded. Therefore, a lot of this process, especially when it comes to this kind of stuff, is that you'll have your development environment like on a the left side of your screen or maybe a new window, and then you'll have the code on the right side of the screen. So you can do stuff like this. So for example, if I come to my topfolder.css here, jump over here, I could be like, I'm trying to find the good coloring here when it comes to, let's say, the download button. So right now the download button it has this like blackish text, right? What you do here is you're talking to ChatGPT, you're figuring out colors. You can even come up here and be like, maybe I want this color. Command save. Oh, that doesn't look good. Go back. And it's just like a back and forth process until you find a color that, really matches the brand and the styling you want. That's kind of what I did in the context of changing this whole palette up. So now that I showed you the method of getting good palette, good coloring for your brand, let me show you every single element that I've added up to this point when it came to adding more roundness to the elements, adding a shadow effect, adding the ability to add a hover effect, stuff like this. Now, before I show you the CSS elements that does that for us, let me just get the non-CSS thing out of the way, which is handle banner click. We already know this makes it so when I click the banner, we go to a separate web page called Popups. Make your life easy. All you need to do is this. Okay, for this, paste the entire J6, paste the entire CSS, and simply ask it, have it so when I hover the banner, it moves 2 pixels up, and when I click, it opens a new tab, provide the link. And it provided everything I needed. Copy, paste, copy, paste. With that, I was able to basically create a nav bar that moves up and also opens an external link. Coming over to the code here, we can go ahead and check out what I did. So obviously, this is very simple here, right? Window open. We've done this before in the previous lesson, made it so that when this element is hovered over and is clicked, we open a new link here. You already saw how to do in ChatGPT. CSS-wise, we basically asked for this relevant information where when the banner is hovered, we transform and we translate y-axis, x-axis, up 2 pixels. The transform here, the 0.2 seconds, is what adds that smooth effect. So it isn't just like an instant click up, like a boom. It's like a slight hover. Same situation was added to this CSS element here. All I did was simply come up to my topfold.css. I went to that relevant button, scrolling down here, watch demo button. And anytime you're like, where is this associated? Just do Command F, Control F, come back to your JS file, and then you'll find where that relevant button is. It's right here. So I know this button has to do with the active investment. So I come to this CSS. What I did was I simply said on hover, we translate up 5 pixels, and we have that nice transformation of 3 seconds so that we have a nice little, UI element that goes up slightly, add some interactiveness for the user. And then finally, the last two things are the shadow elements and the round rect. Round rect is very simple here. This is border radius, and you can just, for example, if I put 200 here, watch this. It goes super round. Let me keep that 20. And then the shadow itself is called box shadow. Now, you might be saying, Corbin, I don't want to type that out. Don't worry. It's simple to ask ChatGPT. All I did was give the relevant CSS, and I say, give a shadow here with this color, provided the color, and it actually did give me the wrong code here. Notice how it says text shadow. This isn't a text. This is a element. This is a div element, not GitHub. This entire thing is a div element. How do I know it's a div element? Because of the fact that it says div. So knowing that, I knew that this was wrong text. This is wrong code. So I said, this is not a text shadow. This is an element shadow. And then it gave me the correct code here of box shadow. Simply copied that, pasted it over to our tapfold.css, and got a relevant output. You can push this to the limits here. If you're like, you don't know what you can do when it comes to CSS, just ask ChatGPT, copy it, paste it over, and just see what happens. You can do animations with this. You can do a ton of different stuff when it comes to CSS. There's a bunch of cool stuff you can do within your website here. For now, let me show you a good practice when it comes to development and saving progress. We are at a pretty good spot here when it comes to this branch here. We've successfully completed the banner portion. The next portion here is going to be the investment portion. So for now, let me show you how to save your spot like you're playing a video game. No, this is not Minecraft. This is not Call of Duty. But we're going to save you a milestone here. This is how you do it within a branch. So right now, Banner Invest hasn't been pushed to the cloud yet or GitHub because of the fact that we haven't actually pushed anything yet. So let's do that. To save your spot, we're going to do git add, git commit, -m, add these to your cheat sheet. We've done this before. We're going to say banner done. And then we're going to do git push origin. And we're going to do the relevant branch name that we're currently in. If you don't know, look to the bottom left. Right now, we're in Banner Invest. Enter. With that, that's going to push this to GitHub. You'll notice it's a PR request, but why is this important? Why are we doing this? Because of the fact that within this branch, let's say I go to the next phase here, and I go to the investment section, and I mess up really bad. Okay, I'm in Banner Invest. What I can do is I can go to Banner Invest here, and I can roll back to this commit here. So let's say I'm working in my local branch. I'm going. I burn 3 files. I just completely mess up. I can roll back to this previous branch here and find where I just saved my last spot. So in this context, here, make sure to use my past ChatGPT chats to show you how to do this. Make sure to use your current ChatGPT chat that has custom instructions to help you to do this. But it very much is simply just copying this and then pasting in the ChatGPT chat and just saying, I want to roll back to this commit. Let's keep going here. I don't know how I'm going to structure this next element here when it comes to investments. I have a slight inkling. I'm going to try it out here. I'll probably see you in 20, 30 minutes. Same deal. Walk you through step by step what I did. Make sure you leave a like. It's completely free. And I'll see you there. So I got my elements right here. Obviously, got to do some CSS. Got to adjust some stuff. But what you'll notice is it's pretty much already there. And this only took me around 5 to 10 minutes with this nice little hover effect. Obviously, there's more stuff I have to do when it comes to look. But let me show you how I got this far, as this only took me like 5 minutes. As you've seen in past tutorials, I took an element from another website I liked, and I went ahead and did the screenshot method. Provided the screenshot of the relevant element that I liked in the other website, and then I asked ChatGPT this. Okay, we are creating a new section in our website called investmentgallery.js, investmentgallery.css. Here is the placeholder image for each card. And then I used a placeholder image that I have already in my project, so we can go ahead and insert that for these relevant images that show there. Provided it like this. And I say, make 3 cards, make it look exactly like the attached image. First major thing you need to take from this is grab a relevant image that you have from another file that you've already imported and that we've done before, like this. With this, use this as a placeholder so that you can get the code and then provide the real images later on. So, right here, placeholder, super nice. With the first output here, though, there is some stuff I didn't like. So it gave me the JSX, gave me the CSS, but notice how the CSS is like super general, info, card, button, no good. Therefore, I went ahead and did 2 things. First thing I did was I went ahead and truncated the size of the class name from investment gallery to just investment G. So I said that here. Let's rename the file to investment G. Did that for me. As a side note, I went ahead and just already had these files created within the views because this is a major section within the landing page. From there, I also asked it to give a suffix to the underlying CSS class names so it's more specific. So I said, okay, give me again, but let's make the CSS more specific by adding invest dash in front of the CSS classes. And what you'll notice is that now we get invest dash in front of everything. This is a good practice, as you don't want to have CSS classes overlap between files. Make your CSS classes specific to what they're doing. Got the relevant code here, came back over here, pasted in the JS, and the CSS. Once it was pasted, I just followed the logic that we've done in the past, which was come to our homepage.js. I imported investment G, like we imported the top fold, and then I put it right under the top fold. Therefore, that's why we see the top fold here, and then the investment section here. Also, you'll notice the copy is like iPhone 16 Pro. Obviously, I'm going to change that. But that's the idea here. We're almost getting a done investment section pretty fast here. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up and show you what I did to make this look even better. See you there. And there we go. We went ahead and made these cards relevant to what Web Cafe AI is invested in. So we have currently 3 major investments: AI Marketplace, Popups, and School. So what we can do here is I'm going to walk you step by step of how I got to this point. What you'll notice is that each one has a hover effect, which is nice. In addition, I went ahead and specialized one of the major investments here, which is Popups here, to a different coloring, as you'll see in the code here, and everything works. So what it does in this context is that if I simply go to AI Marketplace, I click it, it'll bring me to AI Marketplace. Popups, it'll bring me to Popups. In School, it'll bring me to School. Now let's walk through step by step of how I did this. Now, first thing I'm going to show you is how to add this little cursor effect here where it turns into like a click motion, right? Does it here, does it here, does it there? Let me show you how to do that. So the relevant element that we were hovering over was invest card. And how do I know that? Come to the JS here. It is like the overarching element right here. Real quickly, to change the cursor from default, which is this right here, little arrow, to that little pointer thing you just saw right there, it's just cursor, semicolon, pointer. That's it. And if I hover over any element that has this line, it's going to have that click event. When I say click event, this is what I'm referencing. Notice how it has like the little clicker. Now let's go ahead and walk through step by step of how we got to this point. So the first thing that I did was I was going to change the underlying text and copy that shows up for each card here. So what you'll notice is that, we got AI Marketplace, description, display link, actual link, the image, and then a boolean here. We'll go over all of this. But the first step was basically giving the relevant copy for what's relevant to me. I initially tried to do this with ChatGPT, but I realized, you know what? This is so limited that I might as well just put it in manually. So for me personally, I went in manually and just changed the name and added relevant descriptions that I know fit this link and investment the best. Doing that, in order for me to make sure the chat is on the most up-to-date code, I went ahead and reset it. To do so, I said, okay, take a step back, which you're probably familiar with in previous lessons. And I said, here's the current file. And I just pasted the entire current JS file that I like with the relevant changes that I did personally. So now we're starting on a good foot. Once I provided the file with the correct copy, when I say copy, I'm referring to School AI Business. It doesn't say iPhone anymore. I simply just asked it to just remove some comments, // comments. It's code it doesn't read. It's just for your reference. I just asked it like this. Let's have each card click on open a new tab to a website. Provided the relevant code. So for this card, AI Marketplace goes to webcafesoftware.com. For this card, Popups goes to bumpups.com, and followed in that manner. The code provided worked. But what it did, though, was it took the link and it displayed that for what's shown here. For Web Cafe Software, it showed the entire link. For Popups, it showed the entire link. I didn't like that. I want the display link to look sleek and clean. Therefore, what I said was this. I said, do again, but let's do a display text link, which would be like school.com. But clicking the link, we'll use the actual destination link. Let me make this more clear. So the display link in this context would be, actually, the school would be a better version of this, right? The display link would be school.com. That's what we see right here. But when I click, the actual link I'm clicking to is like the actual, landing page for my school community. You click it, it goes there. This is purely for UI, but this is purely just so it looks better on your web page. So what you learned here is that you can show elements on your web page in a cleaner way than alternatively me providing the entire school link here, right? So instead of me providing the entire school link here, I click and it actually just takes me to the landing page that's relevant for this. Now, the next thing I wanted to add here, and I kind of reset the chat because, we're getting some motion here. In theory, I could have started a new chat, but sometimes I just do this. Current JS, current CSS. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm about to make a big CSS element change. So I pasted the entire JS file, pasted the entire CSS file. You'll notice a pattern here. And from here, I wanted to have it so that we just changed a couple things. First off, it was referencing the cards as products based off the original, Apple products. Change that to investments, easy. Provide the line, done. And then finally, which is really cool, as you'll be able to learn a cool thing about booleans. Booleans in this context is yes, no, true, false. Is I wanted to have the ability, so as this list grows on webcafeai.com, as we invest in more opportunities, there'll be more little cards here, right? We can build onto this. Which is a side note, what makes this code super clean and super nice is that now we have a new opportunity. I don't have to worry. Command C, Command V, that's it. we just created another card, and it's like built within the element. That's what makes this super cool. So I'm gonna obviously delete that because that'd be 2 bumps. You want 2 bumps? And from here, what you'll notice is this Boolean. The purpose of this Boolean is I wanted to kind of enunciate one of the investments comparative to all of them. Therefore, we added a Boolean of is featured. And all I simply did was ask this. Let's add a Boolean of is featured. And if it's true, we do a different CSS element, making the card have a different background color, and then provide the background color. It provided me the entire JS, and it provided me the entire CSS. And as you know, and I might need to make a t-shirt on this, copy paste. And that brought me to this point where now we have an entire investment section. I'll probably add a title here, but this kind of concludes up to this point in this video a pretty solid looking landing page so far. One last thing though, actually one very big last thing here. What you'll notice is that each one of these has a relevant image element. Here's what's extremely important about image elements, especially in the context that each one is going to be different, but it's going to be used in the same way. So what I mean by that is, obviously, this is a different image from this one, and this is a different image from this one. But they're used in the same way, in the same CSS element or J6 element of a card or card. What's important for you to know is make sure when you upload these files, these JPEGs, they're the exact same size. So when you apply CSS, like 300 width, it looks the same and everything looks like consistent. So in this context, for each one of these images, I made it the size of a YouTube thumbnail. Went ahead and dragged it into Photoshop. You could do Canva and just export it at the same size. This makes it so when you make relevant changes to the underlying image, such as width and height, it looks consistent, which is obviously very important in the context of building out a good-looking landing page. We're good to go here, though. We got a good banner, got a good investment section. Let's go to merges to main. Because remember, this entire time, we created a whole separate branch for the context of this new element we're adding. And the reason we're doing this is that if we really mess up, we can revert back to main. Let's do it. Say git add, git commit, -m, quotation mark, investment done. Quotation mark, git push origin, the branch name. You can come up here to do git branch, or alternatively, find it right here, and then push it. Once it's pushed, asterisks will go away, color will go away, come back over to GitHub. In GitHub here, we're going to get a nice little notification here, compare and pull request. We're going to compare it. We're going to pull it. Banner invest, let's change this to banner done. Nope, done. Investment section done. So we can reference this later when we do this. We're going to then come down to create pull request. Once you create the pull request, since we kind of already know what the situation is, we can check what the files changed, like what happened. Obviously, we added some images. We added some files. Like, this is pretty standard stuff. If there is a file in here that you're like, I don't remember doing that, this is where that would come up into play. Coming back over here, though, all we got to do is hit merge pull request. Confirm merge. Once we confirm merge here, we can simply delete the branch as it's not needed anymore. So now that we've merged this to main, we come back to our VS. We say git branch. We say git checkout main. This is how we move between branches. And then we are currently in an old version of main, right? Because we haven't pulled from the cloud yet. So what you'll notice is that we don't have the components that we created with the investment section, the banner section. And if I even hit command save here, you'll notice that we have an old version of the code. Oh, this is old. This is very old. And it looks different, right? Don't worry though, because all we have to do is git pull origin main. And this just pulls the code from the cloud. Hit boom, plus, minus, plus, minus. It didn't like something. Let me see what it didn't like. Oopsie, it was trying to pull this. Let's delete this, because I had it open and it was freaking out. So now, once the main branch is clean, let's try it again. Boom. There we go. Now that we've done that, hit command save. Notice all the new files. And sometimes you're going to error like this. Don't worry. Let's rerun our npm start here so this doesn't happen. Npm start, and then this is going to rerun the emulator. Sometimes you got to re-reference the code. This doesn't always happen. Obviously, I needed to do it this time. And let's check it out. Sometimes walking through the files again, just hitting command save, control save, make sure everything is clean, and boom. Now our main branch reflects this where we've got it. And there we go. We have a successful, up-to-date main branch based off the branch we created today. Pretty good. Make sure you leave a like. It's completely free and it helps me out here. Welcome back to one of the most in-depth series found on the internet that actually shows you how to use artificial intelligence in the context of coding. And I teach you how step by step with a bunch of different resources. Today's lesson is lesson 7, and we're going to be completing the footer of the website we've been working on. And on top of that, I'm going to make it mobile responsive. Okay. For everyone else that's watched lesson 1 through 6, I mean, we've been going a lot here. This is a lot. This is a lot. For now, though, we're on lesson 7. Last major announcement before we jump into lesson 7, and I show you how to prompt with AI and code with AI in the context of a footer and making it responsive for your web application is what's happening next. So what you'll notice is that lesson 8 and lesson 9 have like a little white line drawn above it. Why is that? Well, first off, Lesson 8 is going to show you how to build out a newsletter CTA. And what I mean by that is basically the ability to handle webhooks effectively and securely within your software/web application, e.g., you put your email there and it signs up to any newsletter that you currently have. This type of tech and workflow can be applied to anything though. This kind of lesson is very powerful. This allows you to connect to external APIs and leverage it in a secure way. So lesson 8, newsletter and webhook, and lesson 9, which is I'm going to build out a real quick contact page for anyone that wants to have a contact page on their website and the ability to have a custom domain, e.g. not Firebase domain, but like webcafeai.com domain. Those lessons are going to be found on the school community here, which is fine. You don't have to join. You're like, Corbin, I don't care. I don't want to join. I don't want to pay you. That's fine. You don't have to. You'll get basically 80% of what you need to know through this entire playlist that you're seeing already, through this entire YouTube playlist that you are currently on. Although that price you see right there is going to raise over time. So you can lock in $19 now or just be like, I don't need those lessons. That's fine. You don't need those lessons. It's okay. I also plan on doing, half the AI software playlist on this community as well. Okay, you don't care. That's fine. That's fine. Let's jump in here. So first off, let me identify what a footer is and what I mean by mobile responsive. First off, if you've never done web development, the footer is anytime you scroll down to the end of a web page, that's it right here. So it's like section right here that you see. This is the footer, basically the bottom half of the website. Typically found in footers, you're going to find relevant links. You're going to find terms of services. You're going to find privacy policies. You're going to find like social media links, stuff of this nature. Now, the second one, which is mobile responsive, that's an umbrella term that I use in the context of, does it look good on tablet? Does it look good on a smaller laptop screen? The easiest way for us to see whether it looks good or not is we can actually leverage Chrome. This works on other browsers, but from my personal experience in developing web applications in softwares, Chrome is amazing because what it allows us to do is this. We can right-click the screen in our Chrome browser and simply hit inspect. Now, when we do inspect here, obviously it's going to put in the elements. Console is very important in the context of software. This is like where you get messages, console logs, etc. But what we care about in today's video is this little button right here. I click this, and what this allows us to do is that within Chrome, we can see how our web application is going to look depending on the screen size. So either we can go responsive here or be like, how does this look on iPhone 14 Pro Max? Okay, kind of okay. That's the idea here, though. How does this look on iPad Air? Okay. I see. And you can click through this. You're going to do responsive here, which allows you to drag this little bar right here to kind of see how your website interacts with different screen sizes. So we're going to leverage this today. I'm going to show you how to do good practices when it comes to the CSS files, etc. Shall we finally jump in? You're like, Corbin, stop talking. You talk too much. I get it, okay? Let's go to VS Code. We're in VS Code. We're good to go. Let's go to our cheat sheet. As you already know, we got to go to our directory when we do commands, as this is where our code is stored. So we're going to do this, boom. And when I say stored, that's this entire shabam here. Obviously, we went over this in past lessons. I'll repeat myself a lot in these later tutorials here, just because at the end of the day, when you're learning, you need to hear it again. That's anything with learning. Like when you hear it multiple times, you'll be like, okay, now I remember. So from here, though, remember npm start. npm start here, hit enter, and we're going to launch our localhost 3000, which allows us to see visually what our current web app looks like, which if you didn't know, this is where we're at up to this point. We currently have a nav bar. We have a nice little notification bar, a banner that works all intuitively. This all works from our past lessons here. We have our current investments found here at Web Cafe. And now we're going to be adding a footer here. But in reality, the reason we're jumping to the footer here is due to the fact that the newsletter CTA, which I may add here, or alternatively add below here, that's obviously going to be in the school lesson. So I kind of wanted to wrap up what's found on YouTube first. So what I like to do is once we have the npm start running in one terminal window, just hit Command N, Command Control N, I believe. It opens a new terminal window. This allows us to then do further commands when it comes to GitHub, everything above the board there. Perfect. Let's go ahead and do this. If you've seen the series, you already know the situation now. Get yourself a cup of coffee. I'm gonna listen to some Swedish House Mafia. Mix. I'll come back here. I'll show you exactly step by step how I got my new footer here, AI prompts I use, good practices, etc. So I'll see you probably in 10 to 20 minutes here. See you then. Wait, one last thing. As you already know, you're like, Corbin, you forgot something. I know I did. Git branch. We're going to create a new branch here. First off, I'm going to delete my branch that I did in the past video because I don't need it locally anymore. That's going to be git branch.d-d. Now let's create a separate branch for the purpose of the footer and responsive. So we're going to do git checkout -b. I'm going to do footer, and we'll just do rep, footer rep. Kind of like a gym. When you go to the gym, you like to do a bench rep, foot rep. Here we go. So we got a new branch here, foot rep. or footer rep, and we're going to go. So we know our main branch is our stable branch. We don't want to make any drastic changes within our main branch for obvious reasons, so we can roll back to it if we mess up dearly in the footer rep branch. For now, though, let's proceed and do our footer. We got our footer here. Let me show you step by step how I went ahead and created this. Now, obviously, the footer is not using the correct copy for Web Cafe. It's using Apple copy here. When I say copy, I'm referencing Shop and Learn, Account, Manager, Apple ID, stuff of this nature. From what you see here, you scroll down. Is it pretty good structuring here for a footer? Let's find out how I did it. Coming over here to ChatGPT, I always like to start my chats with the broad goal of what I'm trying to do. So what I said is this. Okay, we're creating a footer for a website today. Call the files footer.js, footer.css. Let's copy exactly what's shown in the attached image and use this as a placeholder image for the icon. And then gave a placeholder image. You're probably familiar with this with the past lessons. Therefore, all we need to do is come over to our views. This is where we put major sections of our landing page. Right-click, new file, create the footer.js, create the footer.css, blank files. When approaching the footer, you can either give a general direction or alternatively, look at another website's footer, like the styling, like the structuring, everything like that, and screenshot it. With this screenshot, I went ahead and took Apple's footer here. What you'll notice is that the major components that I personally liked were the borders from here and here. I like this little logo of Apple with like a nice little like subsection. In addition, I really liked this bottom part here where it has like one sentence and then legal stuff implied at the very, very bottom. And then we'll get an output here that obviously won't look exactly like it, but it'll put us in the right direction. So we'll get our first output here of the JS, and then we'll get our second output here of the CSS. Now, all you have to do is simply copy and paste. I'll give some perspective here though. This is where I started. So let me copy the first initial code I got. Copy JS, paste over here. Let me get the CSS as well. Copy CSS, paste over here. Let me show you what it originally looked like on the first output. This was the first output and what it looked like. Now, obviously, this isn't what we want, but using this, we can go ahead and start structuring it and get a footer that we like so that our footer can change into this. And then last thing, obviously, in order to render it, we're going to come back to our JS file. We're exporting as footer, therefore in their homepage.js. So we'll import it as footer from footer.js, views, and then we'll place it under the investment G section and the top fold section so it's at the very bottom of our website. So first major thing that you saw that was wrong with that original output was the underlying logo was all the way over here. We want it right there, right? So we want it in the top left how Apple did it. So what I did was I simply just screenshotted that very specific part. And I said, make it look exactly like this. Notice the border on the top. So it didn't have the border originally either. And then I provided the relevant code that it provided up to that point, which was just the image file. And then it said should be left and then Web Cafe Holding Company to the right, like an image, and then the rest. Gave me the code. Remember, copy, paste, copy, paste. JS over, CSS over. That put me in a better direction. And then the next thing I didn't like was the fact that all of the columns were center aligned. To solve this, I simply asked it to go left aligned. In addition, notice how Web Cafe Holding Company is in its own column here. We don't want that. We want it to be above right here and then everything below that. So I simply said it in plain English. Better, this is what we currently got, but one issue. Notice this gave the relevant code, which was the logo and Web Cafe Holding Company, which correlates with this code. It's in its own column, but with the original footer, it was above all the other columns aligned left. Therefore, we need to wrap this in another CSS class to do so. Let me explain that a little bit more. When I say wrap code in another CSS class, here's what's going on. Originally, footer top did not exist. Therefore, when footer top did not exist, the footer columns, this was all jumbled up into one div here. When it was jumbled up into one div, it causes it so that when you try to manipulate a certain section of it, everything gets manipulated. Therefore, a workaround or something you can put in your toolbook here is that sometimes for alignment and structuring, you want to wrap the underlying element in another div, a parent div for the child div here. Therefore, we can treat this differently than we would for the footer columns. Basically, before I wrapped it in the CSS class, this was all treated within this same parent element. But now that I wrapped it in a CSS class, this in a CSS class, outside of this one, I can manipulate this and put it above here and have everything below what's happening down there. If that didn't make that much sense, don't worry. Typically, you don't even have to tell it to wrap it in another CSS class. It kind of already knows to do that if you just gave it the original prompt without this sentence. Now, the next issue that was found within that original output was there was no bottom section. It just completely ignored this section that I wanted. So what I did was simply screenshot that section, said, okay, below footer columns, I referenced the div class here. Let's add the attached image. How did I know it's footer columns? If I come back to our code here in the JS, if I simply double click this or hover, you'll notice this little white line takes us all the way down here. And I know that if I want to place an element below this div, outside of this div, I'll place it like this, footer bottom. So what I did was I referenced the whole class rather than copying all the code. I can just reference this top part here, and GPT is smart enough to recognize that, okay, you mean everything below this. And it did that. Went ahead and created this entire section here below that original div. And just so you know, when a div is closed, you can kind of see it with like div here, and then notice that little slash that shows you that that element is closed there. Now, what's super cool here is that it also gave me the relevant CSS associated with this new element. And just to clarify again, this new element is this one right here. And instead of giving me the entire footer.css, it gave me the CSS relevant to this new element we just created, which is gonna be the footer bottom. Here's what's cool about that. And here's something you can learn real quick. What I like to do is that for specific elements found within a component, I like adding some comments here. Comments are code that is not read, but it's for your use. So what I do is I typically just add like duplication of what section we're referring to here. So for me, I'm gonna call this footer bottom. I know that. So I'll just like paste it 4 times to kind of separate the CSS blocks between each other. Because if you get a very complex web page, you're gonna have a ton of different elements and it can get really jumbled up and you're like, wait, where is this again? Where's this again? If you have nice little chapters here, little sections here, you'll be able to find that code easier. The next issue I was having with this output was the border itself wasn't going in between this sentence and then this section here. And as a side note, to make this so that it went horizontal like this, I basically just copied that entire section and I was just like, make this a row so it's all one line. But I was having issues with this border here just registering. It kept putting it in the wrong area. I kept trying. I was like, you know what? Let me just show you something new. And that's something new here is that we can create an entire div element that is just a border. So I simply said, okay, let's just do this, make border, and then gave the code as its own div element so I can adjust it from there. And it did that. What you'll notice is if I come back to the code here, it's its own div element, which is footer border. And then in our CSS, this is where I can adjust it. I mean, right here, I can add the height, color, opacity, width, and everything. And that allowed me to put it right above this footer section here, right above these links, right there. So keep that in mind. If it's giving you trouble or issues, sometimes approach it in a different manner. As originally, when we were creating the border, as we did here, we did this as a border top, which means it's going to take the entire div element. So in this context, the footer top. And the footer top in this context encompasses the dark logo, the Web Cafe logo, plus Web Cafe Holding Company. And we use border top here in order to be like at the top of this div element, just give a border. The alternative way to approach this is going to be providing a entire div element that is just a border itself. So footer border. 2 different ways you can approach the same type of logic. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and update this copy so it's relevant to Web Cafe. I'm also going to make it so that there's external links going to be associated with this footer element and keep going here. I'll see you soon. Went ahead and changed the copy of our footer here. So now we are doing something that is more aligned with Web Cafe, such as social media, investments, education, paid promotions. Now for all these columns except the last one, they're all going to be external links, which we've learned in the past, where simply you click it, it'll bring you to that web page. As a side note, you might be like, Corbin, what is digital nomad? What are you talking about? If I click it, this is my second channel here. I actually plan on going full-blown digital nomad next year. I'll be traveling around different countries. I'm going to show you how to do it as well, what the cost is associated with it, everything by the board. That's a little side note, but check it out if you want to learn all that kind of stuff. The last column here is actually a button that when I click it, it brings up the email option. So you can automatically email me if you want to contact me for paid promotions. Then obviously we just changed the copy over there to reflect our branding. Let's find out how we did it. To start off, I opened a new chat. I gave the entire JS file and I gave the entire CSS file. Copy, paste. Once I provided these files, I simply asked it, hey, I want to do something very specific here. And it said, okay, what do we want to do? How would you like to proceed? I went ahead and said, okay, help me create links for all of these. Make sure to open a new tab. Provided the relevant code. So this would be the footer columns. And then one by one, I kept it simple. For YouTube, go to YouTube. For X, go to X. For Digital Nomad, go to the second YouTube channel. For AI Marketplace, go to this link. So this is very much just here, there, here, there, here, there. Once I provided all that, it gave me all the relevant code. And I was able to copy and paste over. Now, one thing you'll notice about links in development is they're not going to look like this right away. They're not going to have this coloring. They're going to have like a blue tinge or a purple tinge. How to solve for that is this. In the context of coding, that blue tinge and purple tinge is what we call decoration. So I'm going to say, okay, make it so there's no decoration on the link and also make it so there's a slight hover effect. Give the CSS classes for the links. And it did. Simply copy this, paste it over my CSS class, and I was good to go. For reference, what I mean by that purple or blue tinge is if I delete that CSS that I was just given, that's what my links will look like. No good. Better. We have successfully created a footer together. This works. This is good. Now we're on to the next part of this video where we're going to do mobile responsiveness and just make this responsive on any type of screen layout. Let me show you what I mean. In theory, I can hit right inspect and show you, or you can come up to your browser, come up to the corner, and then just drag over. And what you'll notice is that we are not optimized yet. I mean, look at this. Watch this. Oh, that does not look good. Let's go to make this look good here so it actually looks good on a mobile view. I'm going to make the relevant changes, show you how I did it, showed you how I talked to AI, everything but the board. I'll see you there. I have successfully made this responsive. Watch this. When I drag this in our Google Chrome, it slides in. So this is for the tablet form here. Everything is now structured correctly. If I go all the way to mobile here, slides in again. And if you scroll down, looking pretty good. For reference, this is what it originally looked like on mobile. Obviously, not passable for a real website. This is what it looks like now on mobile, though. Pretty solid stuff. So let me show you how I did that. To remind you again on how to get that responsiveness and what I just showed you, right-click, inspect, come up here to that little icon up there, click it, and then you can simply start dragging. So the process of making a web application responsive is actually a lot easier than you would think. I'll walk you through a couple examples and I'll give you some insight. First off, proceed with providing the entire JS file and CSS file. The way you should approach this is that we're going to optimize the CSS responsiveness for the footer, the investment, and the top fold. We're going to go to every single one of these CSS classes over here, and you'll see what we'll do. So let's start off with the top fold CSS. The first major thing you need to identify is that when dealing with CSS in the context of responsiveness, it will have this kind of bracket. At media, max width 768 pixels, and then the tablet will be minimum width 769 pixels to 1024 pixels. It is extremely important that you have this mid-width section here. If you don't, it won't read any of the code found in the mobile one. So check your AI outputs, make sure that's included. Next major thing for you to understand for responsiveness. Let's look at the hero title here. Notice how I have a font size of 2.4 rem. And then if I come out here to just our regular code, notice how the font size there is 4 rem. You might be saying, Corbin, how does it know which one to default to? That has to do with the fact of this one line here. What this is going to do is this is going to override any code found here. So in this very specific context, if it's found in a media screen that is max 768 pixels or under that, we're going to override the original value of 4, and we're going to place it with 2.4. In addition, if you don't adjust any of the other code found within that CSS file, such as color or margin bottom 20px, this code exists here already. So you don't have to retype out that code. It already exists there. In theory, though, if you wanted less margin bottom, I could go here and put it to 10. Etc. So the purpose of responsiveness is that we're changing very specific CSS elements to look better on mobile, tablet, or a smaller laptop screen. Knowing this just as an overarching thing to understand, typically with mobile and tablet responsiveness, it has to associate with a couple of CSS elements. This typically associates with font size. In addition, flex direction of the actual elements themselves. Let me explain a little bit more. So for example here, what you'll notice is that our font size is obviously pretty decently big here. So as you get a smaller and smaller screen, font size for automate everything's going to be smaller. The subtitles are going to be smaller. Like everything's going to be a little bit smaller to adjust for the screen size. And then in addition, notice for an investment G section here, it's in a row. What typically happens when you go to tablets and mobile though, is that you'll flip the direction here to column. Boom. Now it's in a column. Notice if we kept it as a row, this is kind of how the UI would look. But don't worry, most of this ChatGPT handles. Therefore, the workflow is this. You're going to copy your entire JS file, top fold. You're going to copy your entire CSS file. You're going to say, okay, see this code, paste over both. And the reason you're copying over the JS file, you might be like, why do we care? Is that this gives ChatGPT the structuring of whoever is the larger div, different sections. Like it gives it context of where this CSS class is associated to. Once you have both though, we are simply going to add one sentence here. Let's make it mobile responsive and tablet responsive. Just output the CSS relevant to this. And there we go. We get the relevant CSS class for responsiveness. Come down here. Notice that output. We need that min width. You need this. Trust me. So add that if it isn't on this output from ChatGPT. But if it is, you're good to go. Copy, paste over, make your adjustments, and proceed. And then from there, it is as simple as providing the next file. Okay, good. Next file, whatever your next section is. So for me, it's Visual Module JS and Visual Module CSS. Provided all the relevant code. And then I got the relevant mobile CSS and the tablet CSS. Now, what's great about the responsiveness and why I typically leave it till the last part is because of how simple it is to implement in your code. It really is as simple as copy code, go to your relevant file here, so Visual Module CSS, and just paste it at the bottom. So you'll have all your main CSS here, and then your responsiveness CSS at the very bottom. There's really good organization for scaling. With this knowledge, rinse and repeat and proceed. And this will get you to the point where you have a mobile responsive web application. Now, what I suggest you to do is you don't have to follow everything ChatGPT says to a T. Make adjustments. For example, in mobile, this font was still too big. So I made it smaller, made this smaller, made some adjustments here and there. But overall, it gave me the structure and gave me the direction of where I need to go for this to look good on any screen. With all that looking good, let's go ahead and push this branch to GitHub. Make sure you leave a like if you felt like you learned something up to this point. It's free and it helps me out here. So it's going to do git add. Make sure we are in the current branch, which is going to be foot rep. So I can check that by doing git branch. Okay, footer rep, git add, git commit, -m, and we'll say responsiveness. Good. Git push origin, and then whatever branch you're in, grab that. Here we go. So we push this to GitHub. This will all go away. Cleared. Coming over to GitHub here, we're going to hit compare and pull request. If you've seen my previous lessons, you already know what's up. And we'll say footer done and responsiveness. Here we go. Come down here, create pull request. With that done, we're going to say merge pull request. Confirm merge. Now that we've merged with our main branch, we can delete this branch in the cloud. With that merged, we can come back over here. We're going to say git branch, git check out main. So now we're in the main branch. And what you'll notice is that all those changes, they don't exist, because we need to pull the most recent branch from the cloud, the most recent code, what we just merged. Git pull origin main. Boom. There we go. We have successfully pulled the most recent main branch, which was a merge of the footer rep branch. If I come over here, you'll see this in the logs. Notice it's a merge pull request here. We're good to go. The next two lessons you'll see in this series will be found in my school community. As I discussed earlier, we're going to learn how to deal with webhooks and external applications. On top of that, contact page and making a custom domain. And then finally, I'll have the last lesson that wraps this all together on this YouTube series here, giving you context and best practices of how to move forward from here, and maybe some insight on what I plan to do next when it comes to building out an entire software in a similar style. Oh, you found yourself trying to get to lesson 8 and lesson 9 in this really big video. If you want those lessons that show you how to create a newsletter and handle webhooks in a secure manner, check this out. In my description down below, you can find those two lessons in my school community. You can click that little button right there, join, check out, learn. In addition to showing you how to handle webhooks securely and passing data, I'm also going to show you how to connect a custom domain. Finally, showing you how to add a contact-like form on your website. Now, if you don't care about that, that's fine. This next lesson here you're going to see is going to be a wrap up, and I'm also going to show you what we're going to do in the future when it comes to a new series that's super cool. Spoiler, artificial intelligence software. We'll get into that. That price right there, though, is the cheapest it'll ever be, though. You can lock it in for life or not, up to your choice. Let's jump into this final lesson. We have finally did it. We have completed our landing page here, going from 0 lines of code all the way to however many, using artificial intelligence to help us throughout the entire process. As we know from lesson 1, this is going to cost me no money. Like, absolutely no money to run. The only cost associated with this now is $12 a year. Therefore, going back to our original situation where I was paying $18 a month, $216 a year, and $1,018 every 5 years. Well, guess what? Not anymore. Now that the website is complete, the purpose of this video is I'm going to tell you what's next, and on top of that, best practices. As a side note, if you're just finding this video and you somehow found yourself on lesson 10, check out the playlist in description down below. We start at lesson 1 all the way to lesson 10 here, showing you how to build out an actual website. We're talking about functionality when it comes to external links, e.g. I click this banner, go to the external link. We're also talking about pop-ups within the website. What's the active investment? Automatically loads a YouTube video. Hello. Automatically gets going. Scrolling down here, we have the ability to create different cards here. We also have the ability to sign up emails to our newsletter, like a ton of functionality. This was a webhook showing you how to secure webhooks, etc. And don't worry, we also made it mobile responsive for any type of screen. Looking pretty good. Now, the best part about creating a website is that this is basically digital real estate. This will always exist at my domain for the eternity unless I can't pay that $12 a month. So that's the first good thing about this. The second good thing is that best practices kind of goes over this entire tutorial here and the entire lessons you've seen up to this point. When you want to add additions to your website, make sure to create a separate branch, do it in localhost, and then push to here. Now, let's take this one step above that. What is the best of all best practices? That is doing a QA environment, or alternatively named a staging environment. Let me give a brief rundown of what that is, and then that's going to lead up into the final part of this video. So what we've been doing up to this point is that we've been using the local environment. The local environment is what we saw with localhost 3000. And while using the local environment, when we're pushing to Firebase hosting, we've been just going directly to production, just shooting right to production, seeing if it works, seeing if we're good. This kind of logic in the sense of we're in localhost, it looks good, pushing to prod, production, live website link is fine in the context of very simple websites like landing pages, like what we did in this entire series, or just, websites in general that don't have too much functionality. Although, if we're creating software, we don't do this. This would be very bad. If we're creating software, we do local to QA and then QA to production. So your first question might be, Corbin, what the heck is a QA? Don't worry. What QA is a duplication of production, but a separate environment. To be more clear here, this is a separate Firebase project. This has separate Google Cloud functions for the backend. These two are carbon copies of each other, but it's one Firebase project dedicated to QA and one Firebase project dedicated to production. One Google Cloud dedicated in the backend for QA, one Google Cloud dedicated in the backend for production. The reason we do this is that we test the application in QA to make sure everything works good in a live environment. From QA then, once we confirm that, we then push to prod here that allows the general user base to access the new features as well. If that didn't make that much sense, don't worry, as that is the purpose of what's happening next. We are going to be creating a playlist that shows you not how to actually create a website like we did in this playlist, but shows you how to actually create a software. I don't understand, Corbin. What do you mean actually? I mean, like, we're going to do 0 lines of code to however many and build out a real live software. As a side note, some of y'all might be like, what the heck? Why does this guy keep showing bump ups? This is the software I'm currently developing. For context, what this means though is that in this series, you thought this series was in depth for the last 10 episodes. Holy smokes. I don't know how many episodes are going to be in this next playlist I do dedicated to this topic, but it's going to be lengthy. As when you work and create software, we're dealing with a whole nother shabam. What you saw in this series was purely front-end development. This introduces back-end development. This introduces a new language called Python, which I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with or at least heard. In addition, this includes a bunch of different stuff we can do in Firebase. Firebase storage, Firebase database, Firebase auth, Firebase, etc. Like, this is going to be a really in-depth series. So if you enjoyed this series and you followed me up to this point, let me show you how to use artificial intelligence to actually code out a software that is usable. And as I did with this web series, half of the content will be found on YouTube and the other half will be found in my school community. Therefore, if you actually want to learn how to build out AI software, you can follow me here on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. You'll get the first half of how to build out software, and then the second half will be found here. If you don't want to join, that's fine. But as a side note, that $19 is going to be the cheapest it ever is. If you lock in now, you'll get that for life. In the future, it'll be higher. So let me go ahead and leave you with this then, because you know what's coming next in the future, building out software. If you have an idea for a software, you kind of want to be the focal point of this entire tutorial or this entire series and have me build it out, let me know in the comments down below. If something piques my interest, I'll use that as the focal point. If something doesn't, then I'll just do my own idea. That completes this entire series here, which is like 4 to 5 hours long. I'm not too sure. Pretty crazy. If you've been with me this entire journey, that's awesome. Make sure to leave a like. It's completely free. And I'll see you in the next video.